Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our regular council meeting. We came out of in camera earlier, and we'll have a motion right after I get the meeting going here. I'd like to call the meeting to order for our Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. We're all in person, so there's no hybrid. And I will ask council if there's any declarations of conflict of interest relating to tonight's agenda. None? Very good. All right, I have opening remarks here. Our traditional land acknowledgement, the town of Midland recognizes located on land which is traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people, now known as the Chippewa Tri-Council, comprised of Beausoleil First Nation, Arama First Nation, and the Georgina Island First Nation. The territory is within Pre-Confederation Treaty 5 and Treaty 16 and included within the Williams Treaties of 1923. The town of Midland recognizes located on land which is the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the historic homelands to the Métis, and that our town is home to a large and diverse community of Indigenous people. I'd now like to deliver the following safety message. Should the fire alarm activate, please exit the room in an orderly fashion and proceed to the evacuation assembly area, which is located in the upper parking lot. You may exit through the main entrance, the double glass doors there, make an immediate left and proceed out the front doors or through the secondary exit right back here. And up the stairs, check the door for heat before opening, and if it's safe, exit onto the second floor, turn right, proceed out the door in front of you. Washrooms are located on our second floor and the elevator is just outside the main entrance. As Midland has a respectful workplace policy, anyone exhibiting violent or harassing behavior will be asked to leave, and members of the audience are to maintain order and quiet and are not to address council except with permission of the chair. All cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices which emit a sound are to be turned off or set to non-audible. No person shall display signs or placards, applaud participants in debate, or engage in conversation, electronic or otherwise, or behave in a way that may disrupt the proceedings of council. For anyone requiring a hearing assist device, please advise the clerk and she will arrange with our IT staff to provide you with a device. And council meetings are recorded via Zoom and are posted on the town's YouTube site. The meetings are also broadcast on Rogers TV Midland Channel 53 when available. Individual recording, broadcasting, or streaming of our meetings by the public or any member is not permitted without express consent of the clerk and all those present. I'd now like to ask us for a moment of silent reflection before we get our meeting going today. Thank you. All right, I have motion coming out of our closed session here, moved by Councillor Reese, seconded by Deputy Mayor Prost. The council receives information and confirm the directions as outlined in the confidential verbal report and update provided by the legal and risk advisor and the executive director, infrastructure management, town engineer at the closed meeting session of council held earlier this evening, October 16th, 2024, with respect to the stormwater property damage, Tiffin Park and Javelin Co-op at 614 William Street. Council, we've had our discussion in camera. This is a procedural motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Next, moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor Patel, that the contents of our regular council with closed session agenda for October 16th, 2024 be approved. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. I did get ahead of myself earlier asking for declarations of conflict of interest. I've already done that. We haven't got any. If something arises during the meeting, you know what to do. Just advise the clerk and stop the meeting for a moment and make your declaration. Moved by Councillor East, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the items and related recommendations contained within the October 16, 2024 consent agenda as consent items having been considered by council be adopted with the exception of the following items pulled for discussion later. Item 10.4.1 CSR 2024-87 financial report as of August 31st, 2024. Item 10.4.2 CSR 2024-88 sponsorship, advertising, and charitable giving policy. Item 10.4.5 CSR 2024-91 2025 holiday observance / closure schedule. And item 10.4.6 CSR 2024-92 provincial policy statement 2024, a new policy framework for land use planning in Ontario, which will be considered under section 17 of our agenda, reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration, including presentations by consultants regarding our report under consideration. Council, for any items that are part of the consent agenda, this would be your opportunity to make comment or ask a quick question if you have any. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. I just have two questions. One is in regards to the council information package, number 10.3.2. There was a Heritage Committee minutes, August 22nd minutes, and the minutes declared that they've approved the design, option D, of the Dollar Town signage. My question is, does council get to see the signage beforehand, before it actually proceeds?
Tomas.
Through the mayor.
I think you got the trick, Mike.
Just
The
waiting
lights
for
are on,
my-
but doesn't make any sound. Or
Just
talk
make-
really close to it. And for those in the audience, apologize. We have a very loud HVAC system, so we'll try and talk closer to our mic so it comes through the ceiling for you.
Through the mayor to Councillor McDonald. That'd be myself. There we go. Yes, there will be a staff report going to council with options about design. It'll talk about costs, locations, and it'll provide council a comprehensive overview of the committee's initiative about Dollartown.
Thank you. I look forward to that report. And I have one other question. It's minor, if I may, Mayor Gordon. It's in regards to the Canada Community Building Fund. The agreement just needs signature officers, which are yourself and the clerk. And I was just wondering, would there be any need for an alternate in case neither of you are, does it require two signatures, or? That's basically my question.
Lindsay?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor McDonald. That's the standard that it would be required two signatures, both of the clerk and the mayor. So I would say no, the no alternate would be required.
Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda? I just have one pullout then from our council information package, which for the public following along, these are now found on our Civic Web platform, so you can see all this correspondence that we get. And there is a note in there, a resignation from Mark Hamlin from one of our committees. I just wanted to thank her for her service. It's not uncommon for us to go through and kind of cycle through ebb and flow members on our committees. We have a hard time keeping our committees at full capacity, so I do appreciate any residents that have sacrificed their time to participate voluntarily on our committees, and keep watching for openings. But I did want to call out and thank Mark's service for many years, and of course, welcome her to participate in any other way she sees fit in the future. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll call the question and move along. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor Patel. The council resolve into the committee of the whole. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We are now in committee of whole, and I'll pass the chair over to Madam Deputy Clerk. Deputy Mayor. Unless Deputy Clerk wants to do this one tonight. Very good.
Okay, welcome to Committee of the Whole. And if you're following along, it's number 12, and we have a public meeting. 12.1 CSR-2024-93 Official Plan Amendment Public Meeting File number OPA 01-24, address 72 Penetanguishene Road. That staff report CSR 2024-93 Official Plan Amendment Public Meeting File number OPA-01-24, address 72, so repeat, but this is the motion. Address 72 Penetanguishene Road, dated October 16th, 2024, be received for information. So all those in favor? Hang on. Wait. I know. I apologize. I did that first. I would like to call this public meeting to order. This public meeting is being held pursuant to Section 22 of the Planning Act to consider an official plan amendment for the property located at 72 Penetanguishene Road. In accordance with the Planning Act, a person that does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or does not make a written submission before the bylaw is passed or an approval is given will not be entitled to appeal the decision of to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to a hearing on an appeal to the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of this public meeting is to present the proposed official plan amendment and to receive comments from the public. Council is not making a decision on this application or taking a position. Council will debate the merits of the application following the receipt of the staff recommendation report at a future council meeting. This is your opportunity to speak and provide input, and council encourages you to do so. I will now call upon Thomas Wersba, Manager of Planning Services, to confirm that notice of public meeting has been issued as prescribed.
Yes, it has.
Thank you. I now invite Andy Warzen, Senior Planner, to provide a brief presentation about the proposed official plan amendment and speak to any correspondence received about the proposal.
Thank you, Deputy
you.
Mayor Prost. Good evening, members of council, staff, members of the public. Tonight's public meeting, as you heard, is to discuss an official plan amendment application. The file number is OPA 0124 and the subject property is 72 Penetanguishene Road. The applicant is Jantech Properties, Inc. Next slide, please, sir. So this slide here before us is just for context purposes to demonstrate the location of the subject property. You'll see there's a red box with a red circle in the middle, which identifies the subject property. Again, the municipal address is 72 Penetanguishene Road. The property currently lies to the northwest of the Penetanguishene Road terminus there. You can see on the image on the right side, the arrow kind of pointing is approximately the subject property. The property contains about 106 meters of frontage along the unopened road allowance, which would be Penetanguishene Road, and contains an approximate lot area about 2 acres. Next slide, please. The submitted application seeks to remove the Greenlands designation as shown on Schedule A in the town's official plan. Additionally, the application seeks to redesignate from Greenlands to a neighborhood district as shown on Schedule B of the official plan. And furthermore, the application seeks to redesignate the subject properties from natural heritage to a neighborhood residential designation as shown on Schedule C in the town's official plan. The application was submitted as more of a policy exercise to determine more or less the constraints or developable area on the subject property for a future residential development. At this moment in time, the application doesn't have a concept plan. However, again, we're just looking at it basically from a natural heritage perspective to make sure that there is the lot does have the ability to be built upon. In terms of submitting supporting material with the application, the applicant did prepare a planning justification report along with an environmental impact study. The environmental impact study has been circulated to our peer review consultant, who is the Severn Sound Environmental Association. The applicant is working with the Severn Sound Environmental Association to address some of the comments that they have received about the environmental impact study. We did receive, as part of the notification, so the circulation mail out that went to the residents along with the signage on the property, we did receive some comments from the public. I had about 5 in total. This slide, sorry, sir, if you can switch the slide. This slide here more or less just summarizes those comments that we did receive from the public. I'll just go through point by point. As you can see on the screen, a lot of the consistent message was just a general opposition to the application. Reasons being generally related to the loss of the natural heritage and the potential or in the impact of development on the natural heritage lands. There was some issues as it related to potential privacy concerns on some of those existing properties that are back on to the unopened road allowance. Another concern that we had from some of the residents was just the lack of acknowledgement to what the future development plans were for the property. As I said at the start, this is more just a policy exercise to address the natural heritage implications. And then lastly, as you can see by the last bullet point again, is overall loss of of green space, tree canopy. So those were the general concerns we received. I am available to answer any questions or comments that the members of the public or the council has. This concludes my presentation. I believe the planning consultant is here tonight and has a more detailed presentation for council and the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing, for that presentation. I will now invite the applicant's agent, Mr. Craig Matheson, to provide a presentation of the proposed official plan amendment.
Hello, my name is Craig Matheson, so I am the applicant's planner, and I will be providing an overview of the proposal. I might repeat some of the information Andy has already stated, so apologies for that. I'm joined in person by Anthony, who's the applicant's agent, and online by Michael Winya, who is a planner and ecologist and the author of the environmental impact statement, and he will be available to answer any questions. So next slide, please. So in terms of an introduction to the site, it is located at 72 Penetanguishene Road. It's approximately 2 hectares in area, entirely wooded, and is located within the urban area of the town. Large lot rural residential uses are located to the north and west, a residential subdivision to the east, a Catholic school, and Georgian Bay General Hospital to the south. It is at the very northern end of Penetanguishene Road and at the very western end of Victoria Street, both classified as collector roads. The woodland area is bordered by 2 high-traffic urban roads, being County Road 93, located approximately 300 meters to the west, and Vinden Street, and an arterial road located approximately 250 meters north. Vinden Street is also a designated truck route. Next slide, please. In terms of the land use classification of the site, under the Town of Midland official plan, it is designated as natural heritage currently, located inside the town's delineated built boundary. It is currently identified as greenlands and is bordered by lands identified as neighborhood districts to the immediate east and south. Under the zoning bylaw, the site is zoned as residential 3 currently, and surrounding the site are residential zoned properties to the east, institutional zone to the south, rural zone to the north and west, and some highway commercial zoned properties along the road and corridor. Next slide, please. In terms of the proposal, the old official plan designated the site as residential district, given the site is within the urban boundaries of the town and immediately adjacent to residential properties. As a result of the new official plan, which was approved in November 2019, this designation was changed to natural heritage. However, importantly, the new official plan still recognizes the site as urban, shown by its inclusion within the delineated built boundary. What we are effectively seeking is a return of the site to its former residential designation, which aligns with its current residential zoning and is indicative of its urban setting due to the site remaining within the delineated built boundary of the town's official plan. Next slide, please. So to facilitate this proposal, we require an official plan amendment to change the Schedule A, B, and C maps. This will result in the removal of the Greenlands classification from the growth area maps, changing the Greenlands classification to neighborhood districts in the urban structure maps, and redesignating the lands from the natural heritage to the neighborhood residential in the land use maps. Also of relevance, in the official plan in section 2 contains its growth section. This section indicates that population is expected to continue to grow in Midland, that the delineated built boundary for which the site is located in is defined in the official plan. So all of the lands are within the delineated built up area, which are considered as developed urban areas, and any new development within the delineated built up area is considered under the definition of intensification. The official plan in section 2 implements a target of 40% of all new residential development on an annual basis within the town being through intensification within the delineated built up area, which the site currently resides. The site is also proposed to be within the neighborhood district to align with the neighborhood properties. The neighborhood districts represents Midland's existing and planned residential neighborhoods. These neighborhoods accommodate a full range of and mix of housing types, and their role is modest intensification. Next slide, please. So in support of the application, both an environmental impact study and a planning justification report were prepared. An environmental impact study outlines the impact of a proposal on its surrounding natural environment and analyzes whether there are any natural heritage features within the site that are valued under provincial policy. The assessment of planning policy within the planning justification report relies on the findings of the study. The EIS concludes that there are no natural heritage features within the site, and because there are no physical works, development, grading of land, or clearing of vegetation associated with this proposal, any assessment of these impacts would be better suited at the time physical works are undertaken, which will be associated with a future development proposal. Next slide, please. So in terms of planning policy, the site is located within an urban setting and is seeking the same designation as the residential properties to the immediate east and south of the site, and a return of the designation under the old official plan. Proposal is compatible with its surrounding environment. As indicated in the environmental impact study, the proposal will not impact on natural heritage features, and compliance with an assessment with respect to the natural heritage features would be better suited at the time physical development is proposed as part of a future development application. In addition, the new town official plan contains policy which respects the development rights established by the existing zoning applicable and establishes that a significant degree of development rights exist on the lands given its previous residential designation. The proposal simply involves returning the site to its former residential designation. Next slide. Overall, it is considered that the proposal is consistent with the natural heritage policies of the provincial policy statement, the County of Simcoe official plan, and the Town of Midland official plan, and represents good land use planning. It is noted that no physical development is proposed as part of this application, that any future potential physical impacts would be assessed at the time an application for development is lodged. So that's my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Matheson. I'll now open the meeting to comments from the public. If you wish to make a comment, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the public record. Questions regarding the application will be directed to staff for follow-up after the meeting.
Funny, I was in a car accident 2 years ago. I spent 6 weeks in Sunnybrook Hospital, and it wasn't funny. And the front staff here has been lovely, especially Andy. So I do a lot of development. I don't anymore. I'm retired.
Sorry.
I went and had a good walk in the property to see how it coheres to the neighborhood, right?
Okay, sorry,
And-
before you go any further, could you please state your name and address,
Oh, I'm
please, for the
so
public
sorry.
record? Okay,
It's
thank you.
David Reed,
Mhm.
it's 679 Simcoe Avenue.
All right, thank you. Sorry,
And,
you can go ahead now. That's
yeah,
all I need.
Sorry.
Okay.
So when we had a good walk the property, and I met the people here tonight. They're very nice. And we have some, it's gonna need an archaeological assessment, at least the number one, on the right of way. There's some places there that look like they've been buried. And what happens is they used to use rocks in the olden days, and so the animals wouldn't eat them. There's different things in there that are, for heritage policy. And I think before the town does anything, we should have a concept plan. Because, I'm sure that there's more studies that are going to be needed, because if we turn around tonight and we say, or when we're going to say to them, go ahead with the first stage, but really what we're doing is misleading them, right? So let's see what the concept is. It's beside a high school, that I saw the crossing guard today. I said, what do you think of it, right? and I think she's retired too. And, you know, there's a lot of things, the roadway going in, how are we gonna deal with it? Are they gonna go up and around? So myself and being a developer and everything in Muskoka and dealing with, the guy that just got up with Dalton Brumwell before, and they're very good company and they're expensive, but I don't mean to make. But what it needs to do, there's a lot of stuff now that's premature. And I'm not being emotional tonight, that it needs the indigenous, we call it First Nation study in there along the right of way. You can see the pathway. Somebody's gone through there for years and years, right? And you know, if the council bring back, just tell them, bring back a concept. Let's have a look at it. We were okay, but in the meantime, we're gonna protect the property and we can do the archaeological study. There's 3 or 4 people, and they can also pay for the right of way that you own. That'll be part of it, you know. They can also pay for that and maybe we'll come back and everything's done and all that. There was some birds in there that were, you know, at risk. But, you know, you can get a permit and look after them. And we don't want them to go in and start cutting trees down like they did over in Port McNichol. And then we're gonna develop it later, right? So let's leave it the way it is. Bring the concept in, we'll all sit here. We're not gonna get emotional or anything. We're gonna just, let's see what you got. You know, we're putting in townhouses, we're putting in $1 million houses or whatever. So thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you
And
very much.
I'm gonna wiggle back
Uh,
out of here.
Well, thank you for your input. That's what,
Yeah, thanks a lot. And this is coming from a developer, by the way. I've developed lots of properties and I've been to the OMB with the M&R, but you know, this one needs, and anybody can go up and have a walk in there and have a look at what we have too, eh? We have a little treasure up there.
that's fantastic. That's what tonight is for.
Hi, thank you. My name is Megan Gray. My address is 1044 Dina Crescent. My main concern with the development of this property or the exploration of the possible development is the presence of endangered species. There is a red-headed blackbird, or sorry, yeah, red-headed woodpecker, I apologize, that resides in this woodlot and has for a number of years. They've had offspring who also continue to return. This bird is listed on the Ontario Endangered Species list. And this is, you know, a bird, like we only have so many woodlands available for certain species, and the more we encroach on them, the less habitat they have. I think we all need to approach this with a very level head. I agree that we need to see a plan, but we really should leave the lot as is. There should be sort of a moratorium on any logging or any removal of brush until we can get a full analysis of the flora and fauna that reside in this piece of property. And that gentleman was correct. It is a beautiful piece of land. It is a lovely treasure, and it is well utilized by the neighborhood for enjoying the natural environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Danielle Coots and I reside at 1045 Dina Crescent. And similar to ladies who before me, I feel strongly my degree is actually in environmental studies and forest conservation. And the importance of conserving greenlands throughout our towns and our cities. I think both health-wise and for kids' activity levels, all those types of things I think are incredibly important. And environmental studies are wonderful. But essentially, when we're taking away that space, it's gone. And the best way we can kind of keep those species in, keep those trees, keep those animals, is to keep the space. And I think there's a lot of things. For instance, I'm back onto the bush, so I can personally say I love my kids playing back in there, but I know multiple people do. And I think it's important throughout the town and throughout the city to keep those natural spaces, both for the animals, for the trees, for the environment, as well as for our kids kind of growing up. We want our kids outside. We want them active. We want involved in nature. And I know my kids spend hours in that back bush building forts. They have a toboggan run that goes through. We're always seeing families snowshoe through the back in the winter. And I think just the quality of life for the residents of the town when we have those pockets of green space is incredibly important. And again, I think before we kind of go ahead and change that designation, We need to really look at keeping the green space designations that we have, and perhaps even better utilizing them and making them more accessible to the people of the town. So personally, I would just love to see it stay purely for the environmental factor, and as well as the residents being able to use those spaces. I think they're incredibly important, and once they're gone, we cannot get them back. And so I think we really need to think strongly and have environmental studies. I'm not sure who pays for what environmental studies, but to really have studies that are looking at that space and the importance of keeping it. Thank you.
Hi, Holly Chrome, 1052 Dina Crescent. One of my biggest concerns is that this property is right next to a school. I am a school teacher, and one of the main functions of my role is to assist the students in becoming sustainably aware. I work as part of our school eco team, and what our role is to not only promote things like recycling and compost and gardening, but also to build global citizens who protect our environment and who work with nature instead of against it. My concern with this property being right next to a school is that if we were to take down the trees, children who are in the classroom learning about sustainability and how to protect our environment and the health benefits and quality of life benefits that forestry provides are going to watch this come down and in their minds see that there is little care taken to preserve these types of things for their future. We just moved on to Dina Crescent as well. My husband and my son both suffer with breathing difficulties. My husband is diagnosed asthmatic and my son's very quickly becoming on that road. We chose this residential property because of its proximity to forestry, because it can naturally clean the air. The property that we were on previously was on a very busy road. It produced a lot of dust in our home, despite daily cleaning efforts and air purifiers. As a result, my son had a chronic chesty cough that he could not get rid of. Antihistamines would not bring it down. Cold medicine would not bring it down. The only thing that has worked for him thus far is to remove him from those dusty environments and place him somewhere where there's naturally cleaner air. We moved into this property and it has been a very short amount of time, but his chesty cough is alleviating. And I do attribute that to the fact that we are on a quieter residential area, but also because of the green space that is surrounding us and naturally cleaning that air for him. Those are my two biggest concerns. I could go on about my others, but I will leave it to my community. Thank you.
Hi, hello. My name is Lisiane Morris, and we live with my son, my husband, and my other son on 1005 Whitney Crescent. And I'm here to represent be part of the community of mothers that are coming there. I want to explain a little bit why this lot is particularly important in my story. I moved 3 years ago in the middle of the pandemic to Midland, bought my house on Zoom without ever seeing it before from BC. And I was in the rainforests. When I was pregnant, I was taking daily walks in the forest, and it was a real fresh of breath air, obviously. And this is why I named my son Forest. Now that is 3 years old. Oh, when I was pregnant and I moved in Midland, couldn't go anywhere because pandemic. So out the forest, I was walking there daily. There's like little snow hiking snowshoes trails that people walk around by the hospital. And postpartum as well. It's been huge. I carry my kids in my backpack there when I can. And this little guy has learned before going to forest school what are the trees and everything. So it's so very important. I come from Paris originally in France, and we don't have that. And this is an absolute pity. Now we just looked at, hold on, sorry. We just looked at Monsignor Castek to put him for junior kindergarten next year. And one of the main reason that I choose this place is because it's small, it's a small community, and it's surrounded by the most beautiful playground for kids. If you break down this lot, there's going to be 1/3 of that forest that surrounds it, and all the impacts on forest bathing, nutrients that are going on to the kids that are going to disappear. So here's what it is. Do you want to say something, Forrest? No, okay.
And we're leaving. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, my turn. I'm Rodney Wayne Stubble. I live at 1025 Dina Crescent. I'm here in support of my neighbors with concern about this green space destruction. The closest we have to an old growth forest system is here in this ravine. I just lost an 85-foot poplar tree in my backyard outside my fence boundary. And the oaks and the maples and the poplars in this area are mature reproducing trees. I've lived here 6 years now, and I've kept track of the wildlife. There's a coyote family, which we hear frequently. Not fussy on them, however. There are fox, deer, and raccoons, a few others that the disturbance of them is going to impact everything on this ridge heading to the ravine. I'm concerned about the water. When we moved here, our agent said that, gave me a copy of the neighborhood and some elements of the official plan. And he said that, yeah, everything is green space because it's part of the watershed now feeding below Vinden Street to the water that goes towards the, down on Vinden and at 4th Street there into the bay is supposed to be water. I'm not sure if that's part of the town's drinking water. So with the current progress of creating a subdivision, they literally wipe out everything. You look at the Four Seasons development beside Walmart and Highway 12, and I watched it, and they're still doing it. They're literally scouring the ground to put in services, and there ain't nothing for trees. And I first considered moving there, and I looked at their official plans, and they had all these nice houses with trees all around. That ain't what's developed. And when they start going down the hill towards Little Lake, they're going to wipe everything out again. So setting a precedent here with that type of development, I'm not too happy with it. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yolanta Front, and my address is 1073 Dina Crescent. I'm here to present you with the signatures from our community. I'm sorry I'm being a little bit emotional, but it's just I have this, we are strongly opposing this development, and I just want to read it for you. So we are writing to express our strong opposition to the proposed changes concerning the property at 72 Penetanguishn Road, as outlined in the amendment. As concerned members of the community, we believe this proposal poses significant risks to our cultural heritage and the identity of our community. 72 Penetanguishn Road is not merely a structure. It represents the character and history of our community. Its preservation is essential for future generations to understand and appreciate our local heritage. Converting this site to residential use undermines its intrinsic value and diminishes the unique charm that attracts both residents and visitors. We are also deeply concerned about the potential negative impacts that change might have on our neighborhood, including increased traffic congestion, loss of green spaces, and the displacement of long-standing community members. Such disruptions could irreparably alter the fabric of our community. It is crucial that we prioritize sustainable development that respects both our heritage and growing demand for housing. We strongly urge you and other decision makers to reconsider this proposal. Alternative solutions such as adaptive reuse or mixed-use development should be explored to find a balance between preserving our heritage and meeting our community's housing needs. Furthermore, the subject lands as described in the amendment are fully wooded and currently designated as a natural heritage. This designation plays a crucial role in preserving the ecological integrity and natural beauty of our town. The environmental impact study conducted by Skelton, Bramwell and Associates acknowledges the presence of endangered species, the red-headed woodpecker, on adjacent lands. While the study suggests that the proposed redesignation might not directly impact the species, it also notes that compliance with the Endangered Species Act requirements would only be considered at a later stage, when site alteration and development are proposed. This delayed approach raises significant concerns. Postponing compliance with the Endangered Species Act until after the resignation could lead to irreversible harm to the red-headed woodpecker and its habitat. Proactive measures might be taken now to ensure that any potential development doesn't jeopardize this endangered species. Additionally, the current Natural Heritage designation serves as a critical buffer against urban sprawl, helping to preserve the environmental health and character of our community. Reclassifying the land as neighborhood residential would disrupt this delicate balance and would set a troubling precedent for future developments, further encroaching upon our natural spaces. The Town of Midland's official plan prioritizes the protection of natural heritage features and their ecological functions. This proposed amendment contradicts those priorities and undermines the long-term sustainability goals for our community. We respectfully urge the Council to consider broader environmental implications and the community's desire to preserve our natural heritage. In conclusion, we request that the Council reject the proposed amendment and retain the natural heritage designation for 72 Penetanguishene Road. Protecting our natural environment is essential for the well-being of current and future generations in Midland. We appreciate your attention to that matter. I do believe that further studies have to be made. And it's just that I live right there. I walk through the property. I urge all of you to walk right there. They are like I don't know a lot about the history, but there are some structures that need to be looked at. And it's just like it need to be studied. Thank you very much for your attention. It was nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to make a submission, or does anyone have any questions for staff?
A question. Someone else mentioned the 3 stages to eliminate greenbelt, declare residential. There is no plan yet from the erstwhile buyer. How many units are going to go in there? Like a couple of big homes, 20, 30 smaller ones? What's the density going to be? Is there any forecast for that?
Hello, my name is Robert Roach. I live at 1061 Dina Crescent. Not too long ago, you put a stop sign, a 3-way stop on Penetanguishene Road to slow traffic down. Now you want to put more traffic down that road by this proposal. How many green spaces are left in Midland? Are there not properties in Midland that you can develop without taking a green space away? Once it's gone, it's gone. And what we don't see there, for example, is when Canadian Tire expanded in the back end towards Penetanguishene Road, residents were complaining, even down on our end, about rats and rodents and all kinds of different animals that were being forced out and having to find a different home. That's going to be the same thing here. I don't know why we can't keep green space and find other places. There's not a lot here. And that path that you see often that people walk, that's me. I walk my dog there daily, twice a day, maybe. And I'm not saying keep it for my dog, but it's a green space. Keep it a green space. Are we that desperate for tax dollars that we have to get rid of it? Like seriously, none of you would want it in your backyard. And also, if you look at the plan, at the end of Penetanguishene Road where the development is, There's a couple lots on the right hand, on the east side that I can guarantee you, the person that owns those properties also owns a home down on Minden Street, is gonna want that road to go through to those properties so they can develop. And they will affect probably 4 backyards. I know there's an easement, but it's gonna affect 4 people's backyards where they have pools and privacy. So it's an opportunity for this person to get rid of some trees and develop as well. But it's green space. Keep it green space. Simple.
Is there no further comments or questions from the public regarding the official plan amendment? I will now call this public meeting to an end. I have a motion here moved by sorry, does council have any questions? Yeah. Councillor Ball.
Thank you. Oh, perfect timing. Okay, I just had a question for Mr. Matheson. The SSCA, Mr. Warzen mentioned that you've been working with them based off their feedback. I didn't see anything in your report about their feedback, but it was a little hard to hear over the HVAC system. Can you maybe clarify what the SSCA has suggested? Was there anything in their reports or the environmental study about a woodpecker? Can you clarify any of their recommendations to you based off the environmental study?
We good? Hi, members of council, staff, thanks for having us, neighbors. My name is Anthony. I'm with the property owner. We have Michael Winia on the line, who I think would be best equipped to address the SSEA questions. But I also just wanted to invite neighbors to, if you want to have an informal discussion, I'm happy to take questions. Thanks. Is Michael there?
Yes, through the deputy mayor, I could address that question if you'd like.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Yes, certainly I could address the matters that were raised relative to the environmental impact study. An environmental impact study was undertaken. Some of the important distinguishing factors regarding this property were already mentioned. The fact that it is currently zoned to allow a certain amount of development and disturbance to the site. The fact that this property is distinguished from the other properties in the Greenland by the fact that it's in an urban built-up boundary. And part of the urban fabric for the municipality. In terms of the environmental work, an environmental impact study was undertaken, and that study was peer reviewed. Some comments were generated in that regard, and we will be replying to those comments, but those comments are primarily clarifications. Fundamentally, the peer reviewers agreed with our assessment of the lack actually of significant features. Now, this is not to say that the residents are incorrect in terms of there is wildlife there. There's obviously trees there, etc. But when we do an environmental impact study, we do that relative to the guidance provided by the provincial policy statement the Ministry of Natural Resources and so on, in terms of looking at for specific types of significant wildlife habitat, significant features and so on. And those do not occur in this portion of the woodland. There have been sightings of red-headed woodpecker, certainly. That is a bird that is at risk, and it has special status. It is, however, commonly seen in a variety of urban type settings. The reason why the report recommends that this be addressed at a later date is that there's no physical development occurring on the property at this point in time, and this bird is controlled, and the habitat of this bird is protected by the Endangered Species Act. And the Endangered Species Act comes into play if the habitat is directly threatened by potential development. So what will happen is we've recommended continuous monitoring for the presence of this species. If the species is there, then it's going to be protected by the Endangered Species Act, and approval can only be issued by the province for any removal of that habitat. If the species is not there relative to nesting in the area for a certain period of time, then the restrictions would not apply. Again, this species is observed in a variety of urban type habitats. They like particularly dead standing timber for the purposes of nesting and so on. And that's not prevalent in this section of the woodlot. So while the bird may be there on occasion, it's a period of continuous observation that's relied upon, and then we would work with the ministry to determine whether approvals could be granted or not. Again, if you look at the data squares that cover Midland, large portions of Midland are covered by data squares that indicate the potential presence of this species. We will be responding in full to all of the comments received from the peer reviewer, and we also listened to the public and heard what the public had to say this evening. And we will be providing a response to your staff that they can provide to you as part of your ongoing consideration of this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions for clarification? Councillor Major?
I guess I'll have to ask staff this. So if it stays as the way it is, then the owner has to pay taxes on land he can never use? Or I don't know, like, or what happens if it stays Greenland? Like, does he get taxed, and then it's just like forever he pays taxes on unusable land?
Through you, Madam Chair, whoever the owner is may look at the property when you say it's unusable. Somebody who owns the property may say it's very usable if it's natural heritage, and they can have it for natural purposes. There would be no change in the taxes. Madam CFO can correct me, but there would be no change in terms of the taxes under its current state. If it is redesignated and it goes through a planning process to allow for residential to be there, and residential then is then constructed, then obviously the taxes would change on it. But if it were to remain as natural heritage, it would the taxes that are currently being paid would remain. Thank you.
But my question is, if it stays natural heritage, then whoever owns the property pays taxes on nothing. Like, he pays taxes every year and gets absolutely no value out of his property. It's just like, there's got to be some, yeah, I understand it wants to stay as it is, but then I don't see where the owner of the property should be stuck paying for everyone else's enjoyment.
We can wait till the report comes back and discuss that further. Councillor Meredith, anything for clarification?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Through you to Mr. Matheson. Talking about the natural heritage in your report, did you was a little hard to hear, but did you say that there was no natural characteristics of it being deemed heritage, the property?
Through the deputy mayor, in terms of looking at the natural heritage features of the property, we conducted that in accordance with the standard methodologies set out by the province in terms of the provincial policy statement. They look at things like significant wetlands, significant wildlife habitat, ANSIs, areas of natural and scientific interest, and so on, significant woodlands, and a whole series of factors. And all of those were considered relative to this particular site. And it was our opinion that none of those features were there. As indicated, the peer reviewers have asked some questions that we will be responding to, but in my opinion, those comments did not change the fundamental conclusions of the report. Now, keep in mind that this is a determination of whether or not there are significant natural heritage features from a policy perspective. That doesn't mean that there's not a woodlot. That doesn't mean that there's not necessarily, common plants, common wildlife using the area, but it means that there are not significant features that would deem that privately held lands should be held in a green space type designation. That green space designation is warranted by matters of policy significance in terms of protecting the most critical features and so on.
Thank you. Just a follow up through you, Deputy Mayor, to I guess Mr. Warzen. You mentioned that the SSEA was doing a study on the property, and it was natural heritage one of those components.
Yes, through you do, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Emeritus. Yeah, so the SSEA's role is that they, like I said, they act as a peer review consultant for the town. So they would have been the ones to establish the terms of reference with the agent's consultant, and then they would go forward and review that document. Sometimes it does result in there's no additional comments, but in this certain situation, there are some, as Michael Winnie has indicated, some clarification items that need to be undertaken still before the SSEA is satisfied and willing to sign off on that document. So as of right now, that has not happened.
Thank you. And so I understand this is for information only. So a report will be coming back to council with this information. Thank you.
Councillor Patel.
Through you, Deputy. So I just want to thank the public for coming in and giving their passionate views about I guess it's a heritage site. That's all I want to say. Just thank you for coming in.
I think we all thank you for your submissions and questions. So if there's no further comments from this public meeting regarding the official plan amendment, I will now, this time, call this public meeting to an end. I do have a motion here. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor East, seconded by Councillor Ball. That staff report CSR 2024-93 official plan amendment public meeting file number OPA-01-24 address 72 Penetanguishene Road dated October 16th, 2024 be received for information. All in favor? Oh. Is there any further discussion on it? Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. I've got a quick one. I didn't really have a clarifying question, so I didn't ask it during the public meeting part. For all the folks that are interested in this, when can we expect this report with the responses from the proponents and all of these identified pieces to come back to council? Just so that, the residents have some idea when to watch for this and return. It is very nice to have you in council chambers. Thank you for coming out.
To Deputy Mayor, through Deputy Mayor to the Mayor, we anticipate that there will be a recommendation staff report to council for the December meeting. However, that was dependent on comments received from the county and ongoing conversations with the SSEA regarding natural heritage features on the property.
Thank you. So yeah, these things don't tend to rush along really quickly, but with any luck, we'll have it by the end of the year. So keep an eye on our agendas that we publish. And I think there's a process where you get notified as well for the folks that spoke today. Anything, Ted, Steve?
Thank you to you, Your Worship. One thing also to keep in mind is when there's official plans, the county of Simcoe is the ultimate decision maker on this. So Town of Midland Council will adopt a decision and then they send it to the county because there has to be, the county is the final approval authority. So just to keep that in mind, that if for whatever reason, if there is an appeal that is submitted, it's not an appeal to Town of Midlands Council, it's an appeal to the County of Simcoe County Council, because they're the ones who make the decisions when there's official plan amendments. So I just want to make sure that that is clear as well. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks for that clarification. We get a lot of these at county, and I think that's an important bit of information for the residents to understand, is that we aren't the final decision-making authority. It does go to the county, and we've seen many times decisions appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. I'd say about 95% of them right now are being upheld by the proponent because, as we keep hearing, we're in a housing crisis, and any attempts to block growth, especially intensification growth rather than sprawl, meaning building up in our already built areas, typically see the municipalities spend a lot of legal money defending a undefendable position in today's world. So this will involve County of Simcoe as well. Both Deputy Mayor and I sit at the County of Simcoe level. So it's after this percolates through our municipality, it'll go up to the county where we'll have another chance to speak to it with our peers at Simcoe County. So just to give you a little background on where this is heading once we get the report back. But again, thank you for coming in today and for so many of you sharing your thoughts about this development proposal, or this this official plan amendment proposal. And there's no development proposal before us right now.
Is council satisfied and ready to vote on the motion? Do you want me to read it again? Good. So, all in favor? Carried, unanimous. This is the end of our public meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and sharing with us. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I know the developer has said he's welcome to have an informal discussion. If there is discussions to occur, if they can happen in the upper floor in the lobby, just so we can continue our council meeting. Thank you.
Could you imagine? But
Okay, I'm just going to give everybody a few minutes to leave or stay if they wish before we continue. Okay, council, moving forward. We're at number 13 if you're following along. Presentations, we have none. 14, Integrity Commissioner, we have none. Deputations, we have 2. First one up is Georgian Bay Native Friendship Center. I'd like to introduce Mark Vina, Youth Mental Health Program Representative, who will present to council. Welcome, Mark. You have
Hello,
10
everyone.
minutes.
Yes, I'll try to keep it to it. I know it's been a little bit longer of a night. And I'll try not to use humor either. I like to joke. Comes with the territory of youth mental health coordinator. Is there a slideshow today or no? Yay, nay? If not, I can probably do it a cappella, but let me know if it did come in. The pictures help.
Sorry, yeah. You're
Oh,
mic up a
sorry,
little bit.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. My name is Mark Vina. I work at the Georgian Bay Native Friendship Center, and I'm the youth mental health coordinator there. Today, part of this deputation here, I'm just going to share a little bit of what we do, a little bit of how we do it. I'm going to leave some questions or opportunity for you guys to ask some questions of us, because I know for myself, or every time I go somewhere, whether it be a school, whether it be a different town person, you find a lot of people haven't even visited our grounds yet. You know, we've been there since, I believe, 1984 at the 175 Yonge Street property. So we invite everyone here to come out. And so let's go to the next slide. So to understand our Friendship Center, you need to understand the Friendship Center movement. It is the largest urban Indigenous service delivery network in Canada. There's over 100 Friendship Centers in all across Canada. And in Ontario, there are 31, primarily driven through the OFIFC. So they help us not necessarily as higher ups to our organization, but they do assist us. Because you'll find within the culture, it's not necessarily about a hierarchy. Yes, there are chiefs and there are those that follow, but it is more that wholeness. We work together as opposed to in that hierarchical structure. So the Georgian Bay Native Friendship Center, that's the organization I represent here today, is responsible for administrating the services to urban Indigenous populace within Midland and the surrounding areas. That's not to say that we don't help people from the island. We don't really cross our streams with those from Beausoleil First Nation in terms of if they're getting services from the island, those are island services. When they come into the urban space, that's where we can assist, right? We don't want to get those two things misconstrued. We're here to help. However, we do have to play fair with our brothers and sisters. All right, next slide, please. Moving on, you can see here our mission statement is to maintain a community-first approach in improving the quality of life for urban Indigenous peoples. As you can see some of the faces there, we have our executive director and our board of directors. Joining me here today is Lorraine LaCroix from our board of directors. She is the vice president. And so together we make those decisions and they get enacted through the executive director. Next slide, please. Now, what do? Well, we provide culturally relevant programs and services for Indigenous people living in these urban areas. And again, across Canada, but for us specifically, it's within the Midland area and a greater area. Penetanguishene, Tay, Tiny, will go up all the way up to Wabashine. We provide that welcoming space for both Indigenous and non-Indigenous people to share traditions and learn from one another. That is a big goal, right? Or a point that we do. You don't necessarily have to be Indigenous. You don't necessarily have to be status or non-status, or, you know, have a status card. You can be non-status. You can be Métis. You can also be non-Indigenous and come access services. We're here to assist everyone through all walks of life. All right. Next slide, please. And how do we do that? Well, we use the medicine wheel, the teachings behind that as well. But we separated into different categories of programming. We have over 30 workers at the Friendship Center. I believe it's over 30. If it's not, it's just at 30. And so we all assist in a different way. When it comes to youth programming, you'll see my face there, but all my lovely coworkers as well. So we can support youth through one-to-one programming, group programming. We often like to pull on some sort of a PA day event or programming because it's just an easy one to get the youth that are supposedly at home, right? We collaborate with schools. I can absolutely speak to that. whether it's collaborating with schools through our powwow event that happened in the summer. I'm not sure who attended. If you did, thanks for coming out. But whether it's collaborating with the Catholic schools in that capacity or something smaller like myself, I'll go into schools, I'll do presentations, I'll have schools visit the center and work with the teachers to help them deliver that, their Indigenous studies in a more catered environment, right? That's something that I do. But each one of us workers here, we all do something different. So it's important for you to stay on top of some of the things that we do. I'll show you how to do that at the end, but just stay on top of it so you can see all the different things that we do. We also do youth and family events. Next slide, please. How am I for time? Okay. All right. When we move on, we also have adult programs. Some of the ones I like to highlight here today is our outreach program. We offer food supports. We can offer rent supports depending on the situation. Of course, every person's situation is a little bit different, so I can't outright and say we can offer that support, but depending on the situation, we can. And additionally to that, you might have seen our mobile lunch program. We post up outside of not Waypoint, downtown here in Midland, and you'll see our van. We offer food supports that way, and it's also a great way for us to engage with some of our clientele that might be a little bit transient. Going on from there, we have our mental health and justice programs. We offer those one-to-one supports, restorative justice. When we talk about restorative justice, we're looking at those things like diversions and really finding out what the problem is and restoring it as a whole. And usually that is a family approach. And that's really what complements well with the youth programming. It's also some of what I do, right? It really depends on what we have. All of us are built to help each other as a whole, that holistic approach to care. And then we also, for an example, the Red Road to Recovery program is something that we offer throughout the year to help those and assist those in need that way. Next slide, please. And then we have our cultural and wellness team. These 5 individuals, 3, will help by sharing teaching, storytelling, whether that's through firekeeping, through water ceremonies. Some of the ceremonies that we provide or host throughout the year, full moon and letting go ceremonies. Letting go especially is very, very great as a starting point for those who maybe don't know much about the culture. It's a great way to ease up and ease in. We have one upcoming this Friday, actually, at 1 p.m. So that's another great opportunity, whether it's one of y'all or someone that you know. Great opportunity. Actually, the people online. But we also offer exercise programs. 2 examples, chair yoga, Zumba. And we also offer more food sports in a different facet, different capacity, food box sports and hot meal sports, helping over 150 families, I believe, was our last chart. So we're really, really working towards that, right? Next one, please. And we have many more, right? We could go on and I could spend more than 10 minutes mentioning everything that we do. However, some of the other facets of our organization, lifelong care. We have an employment team. We have our support staff that keep the building running. And we also, within our center, we have the 7 Fire School. They run through Simcoe Shores. They're not part of our staff and crew, but I always love to acknowledge them because they are within our confines, right? So that's some more of us, and then onwards. And next slide, please. Well, how can you help? This is a click through. You can click donate. Yes. What can you donate? Click again. You can donate time. You could engage with us. That's the next slide. Or you can offer, what's the next one? Promotion, right? You can promote our services. Or you can donate resources, whether that's money, land, that kind of thing. We're open to expanding as well. So that's how you can help. How can you find out more about us, whether it's the representatives of the organization or what we have going on at the center? Next slide, please. Follow us on Facebook. That's the best place to get the most current information. Yeah, follow us there. You can scan that QR code right now. Probably not the setting for that, but thank you for allowing me this time to share that with you. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mina. Before I open the floor to questions, I just want to say that I know all the things that Friendship Center does, and we are so fortunate to have you in this town. And I just really hope more people find out about it and access the resources, because it's the whole thing, right? It's body, soul, and mind. It's not just, you know what I mean. You explained it better. But
Absolutely.
it's a fantastic place to go at any age.
And I very much appreciate the endorsement. I think it is happening. It is, you might be surprised how it's starting to change. For example, I'm actually cooperating more with the public school, public high school than there was previously, right? And that's no word of lie. It's really cool that way, though. Now I'm able to actually go in there and be a part of their Indigenous space that they do have. It's very, very exciting that way. We're going to be starting programming in 2 weeks from now. So that's also exciting too. There's a lot of new doorways and avenues, and as we really create those relationships, you'll find that the Friendship Center itself is going to create more of that community. I guess for my ask for today is just to push it that a nudge further, right? I'm on the ground running. You'll see if you come to the center, you probably won't see me there because I'm out in the community trying to find the next person, the next organization to combo with and see what we can do to benefit our youth. Where are they going with that? But all of y'all can help too. That's where I was going with it. All of y'all can help that too. And whether it's just visiting to find out more, I know some of you for sure. Beth, Jazz, Catherine, Bill, right? Coming out to our events and spending that time learning more. But yeah, I'd love to meet all of y'all too. I don't know the rest of y'all, so come on out. I'm friendly. I swear I don't bite, right? I don't know if this is the forum for that, but like I said, I'm real jokey, and when you spend all day with kids, that's what comes out. So.
Oh, that's good. So I'm going to open the floor to some questions or comments from council.
Please.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I don't have any questions. I just would love to come for a tour and learn more. And I have a few PA Day attendees at home, so maybe they would also like to come check it out. So appreciate you coming and giving me especially. I haven't been to your center, so I appreciate you coming out to give me the opportunity to do that.
Annie Pajot. I'm Lorraine LaCroix. I am the Vice President. Chi Miigwech, very much, Mark, for explaining what the Native Friendship Center is and does. I'm very proud of our organization and the programs that are offered. And I especially want to thank those council members who have come out to support us at various events, the powwows, the Orange Shirt Day, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Working together like that helps our road to reconciliation when we understand each other and work together. So I do send out an invitation to anyone who would like to attend. We do have full moon ceremony tomorrow night at 5:30. It's in the Great Hall. We start outside and then move in afterwards. And also the giving away ceremony, as Mark mentioned, on Friday. It's a great gathering. What's in circle stays in circle. And it's a good relief to express yourself and have the support of your sisters and brothers. So thank you, Chi Miigwech, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment in regards to the value of the cooperation with other agencies. And I'm speaking directly from my personal experience as treasurer of St. Vincent de Paul. We often share expenses for people to be able to stay in their homes, keep them overnight. I know our pantry shopper often she doesn't overshop. She just can't turn down a bargain, and we can't use all the stuff, and she brings it to the Native Friendship Center. So the assistance, like when there's somebody in need, you do the intake, and then we share some expenses. It's very valuable to the community. And I think it's important that you should, I guess St. Vincent's should too, boast a little more of all the people that you've helped in the past and will continue to help. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And if I may say, it's funny. I was sitting there and I was looking forward and I was like, I forgot a slide and I can't believe it because I don't. Again, we have a lot of partnerships and I wanted to recognize those partnerships with the slide. Completely forgot about it, whether it was my schedule. So that's on me. Hey, if I visit out again, I'll make sure you guys know. I'll make sure to boast those connections and also promote you guys too because y'all help us out too. And so that we're lifting each other that way, right? And so I have to give that recognition where that recognition's due. However, that's on me. You can, for the record, that's, yeah. Miigwech though.
Nope,
Miigwech.
miigwech.
I'm so happy to see all this sharing. Councillor Meredith.
Yes. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. And thank you, Mr. Vina. And it's nice to see the success and growth of the Native Friendship Center. Just curious, what is you have a great operation going that I could see. What is your main, not main source, but where does your funding come from to operate the Friendship Center?
Well, it really does come from all over. I would say that's a better question for our executive team or executive director, especially because he works closely with that. One of the main partnerships I can outline, though, is with the OFIC, the Ontario Federation of Indigenous Friendship Centers, as part of that greater national movement. And so when you, I guess, digress or look through, they do fund most of our programming, but it is not the only place. And unfortunately, I don't know all the names for all the programming, or all the fundings. So I don't want to, not give them the recognition that they're due as well. But thank you, though. I appreciate the question. Yeah. And another great thing, I'll promote the O5C as well. They have got a fantastic website, o5c.ca, I believe. If not, you'll find it on Google. To learn more, whether it be the history of the Friendship Center movement or what they're doing specifically to help the 31, you can actually see all 31 Friendship Centers. They have very great interactive map, so you can kind of see them as well, and have a better understanding of how big this movement actually is. Yeah. So, thank you.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Vina, for coming in. We met, I guess, multiple times in a short period. One of the things that I really enjoyed was the 7th fire graduation you had and all the students graduated and, moving on with their life. And I remember that you guys actually hired one of the graduates to work with you at the Friendship Center. So that was wonderful to see what the Native Friendship Center is accomplishing in our community, and which is really great to see, and all the wonderful things that are keep coming and moving forward. And so we would like to work collaboratively with you guys moving forward and, continue the success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jazz. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've met Jazz on multiple events and engagements, so it's really great to see him, full suited up and behind his podium. It's just fantastic. I haven't seen you in this kind of capacity yet, which is great. But you had mentioned there was something I wanted to just outline in what you'd mentioned. And I've lost it. This is my first time doing this, folks. I'm not gonna lie to you. So if it comes back to me, I'll bring it up. But thank you so much. Oh, there it is. So similar to Jazz, just coming out to the events, sharing who you are, having that little bit of conversation, that little bit of banter that goes with the event, whether it be something like our socials or something a little more serious like Truth and Reconciliation. Those are great moments, right? It doesn't have to be anything big. It just has to happen. So that's all I wanted to say. So thank you so much, Jazz, for contributing as well. Miguel? I'll also say, if you let me talk, I will talk. I do present, I like to say for a living. This is a little bit different than the setting that I'm used to, but I don't want to take up all the time though.
That's okay. I'll give you another talker. Mayor Gordon?
Thanks, Mark. I'm really glad you could come tonight and give us, not only us an update, but all the folks that follow along online on YouTube later. So as I keep saying around truth and reconciliation, the people that think that it all has to do with financial, that is part of it, but just listening, participating, and engaging is the most achievable every day. Anybody can do it from your background, your financial capacity, your heritage. Anybody can do it. It's the easiest way to participate in truth and reconciliation. It isn't about guilt or shame. It's just about learning and understanding a culture that predated any of our existence here. So the youth outreach that you do, I mean, you do so many different services through the Native Friendship Centers, but the youth outreach to me is probably the most important pillar. I mean, I think the folks running the adult stuff might take exception to that, but engaging with youth early on in their formative years while they're still learning to accept their heritage and some of the traumas of the past. Some of them may be lucky enough to not even grow up in that, other than learning about it from parents or grandparents or other relatives. They may not have lived that. So the kind of outreach that you're doing, looking for the people that are most in need and then matching them with people that maybe don't have those needs, and just normalizing life for young people is just so critically important. And to find time where they're off their screens and actually working together. I think that's just amazing. I do see your van out and about. As a matter of fact, I drove by it today, feeding people downtown. That's just absolutely incredible work. And there's another thing that I wanted to ask you, and I probably could have just done this informally on the phone or by email, but I know the Barrie Native Friendship Center participates in the bail program. So for Indigenous folks that find themselves in conflict with the law and down at a bail hearing, quite often when in need of a surety, it won't be a family member, it'll be a Barrie Native Friendship Center worker who will sign their act as a surety. The challenge is the Barrie Native Friendship worker doesn't really interact with them after their release, because they come back to our community. I'm assuming I'm talking about people from our community who come in conflict with the law. Bail hearings all happen in Barrie, just for folks who follow along. So I'm just wondering, is there any opportunity for your Friendship Center to maybe participate in these bail programs in place of the Barrie Native Friendship Center if the people who are, going for bail primarily reside in our area, either on the island or on the mainland? Because I see as a bit of a missed opportunity. We're seeing a lot of recidivism. I mean, all you have to do is look in the paper and look at the names of people committing some pretty repeat criminal offenses in our community. A lot of them, it's unfortunate, I'm not trying to put a stigma on here, but they are originating from Christian Island. And I'm wondering, as they get bail, if their supervisory surety is a worker who probably has 1,000 people that they manage. I'm making this up, but a lot of people that they manage out of the Barrie office. Would it make more sense for your office, if you had the capacity or the funding, to be that surety for residents of our area, where you could more directly take an active supervision role as they work through their court process? To me, it just feels like a gap in the system. And I'm just wondering, as we all feel there's challenges with the bail system, if that's something that your Native Friendship Center has looked at or may be open to considering.
I think so. What you mentioned is true, right? There might be a little bit of gap, or not might. There's a little bit of gap. The way that our French Center works is all decisions run through the board. So the board meet as a whole, and as a collective, they come up with the initiatives for the center. But in turn, there's also funding that needs to be streamlined for such programming. So I can't speak to those behind the scene factors, but from my experience with the Friendship Center, if the opportunity presents itself financially, resource-wise in terms of getting the worker, getting the employee, and ensuring that there's no conflicts with Barrie, their worker, their initiatives, then it is something that would likely be considered at that table, right? However, those factors need to take place beforehand, and I'm assuming if it hasn't happened before, it's because those factors haven't been presented, whether it be the actual funding whether it be, the right person for the job, or it might conflict too much with what they have going down there. I can't speak too much to it. Like I'm not too sure, because it is difficult because, as you said, it runs through Barrie. So would it need to be someone in Barrie that would do this service? I mean, that I'm just expanding because, I like to talk, but that's the idea. There's a lot of logistics to it. Until I would assume Midland has something a little more concrete and sound here as opposed to Barrie, keeping it separate in terms of bail. It'll be difficult for us to even position that. Yeah. And again, just speaking from logic in my brain, it would have to go back to the board and then go through our executive just to give you a final answer. So the best thing to do, I always say, in those tough situations for those tough questions, is get in contact with Compton Khan. He's our executive director. He brings everything to the board, and with that, they work together and see what they can do.
Perfect. And I'll commit to doing that for those, wondering what I'm talking about here. So I'll commit to doing that because I think it's a really big opportunity and it's a bit of a miss, a bit of a gap right now that could be resolved. And I'd be willing to be an ally and help champion for whatever funding or whatever roadblocks there are or jurisdictional issues. Because I really think it would help members of North Simcoe if their surety actually was a worker in North Simcoe and not down in Barrie, where they're never going to see them again after they're released and signed out. So I'm working with the band, with Chimney for some other similar issues, and this is where it's come up. And I just thought what a great opportunity to ask you tonight to see if you'd heard any rumblings of it, but you haven't, no big deal. I'll commit to talking with Compton and maybe talking to the board and see logistically if this is something that would better serve the folks that you already serve. I mean, not just youth, but the adults.
For sure.
My last comment was, I think Anotic Healing Lodge has court support workers who are not for the bail side, but for people who find themselves in conflict with the law. And I think that's something that's sort of exclusive to Anotic. I don't think that's something that your Native Friendship Center offers. Is that a correct statement? Court service workers that are kind of shepherding people through the process, because court can be really confusing and scary for people in their first time, in conflict.
So we do have an Indigenous court worker within our midst. She's part of the what would be the justice team. And the relationship that we've created within this community, if memory serves me right, I would have to ask her personally. She's likely positioned herself well within the court system here to assist in a way that she's not overlapping with the Nautic, but also ensuring that folks are getting put through and getting their matters resolved in the most timeliest of fashions. I know a big portion of her work is creating backgrounders, which, if you're familiar with GLADU reports, there's a certain criteria for a GLADU report to be written on a person. She actually takes care of what would be maybe a miniature version of that to help folks move along. And aside from that, and when we look at our mental health program, or if we look at our drug and alcohol program, they assist oftentimes with the certificate program to show that the person that's committing or had committed the act is working through a type of diversion program. And so with those certificate programs, they get like a write-up to the court, and the person gets 12 weeks set of programming, 3 months set of programming, depending on what the courts say as well. Like it's a pretty good system. Could it be better? Sure. But that would maybe go back to that point of, do we have the resources? Do we have the capacity? And is there any conflicts, right? And so again, that comes back to the board. I love the question, but I can't answer it fully for you. I appreciate it though.
No, not a problem. And I don't want to be dwelling on the justice side, because I mean, that's a tiny fraction of the folks you serve find themselves in conflict with the law. So I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to feed any negative stereotype.
Yeah.
But it's just an opportunity that I think is coming up in other areas in our community that I thought would be good, because I know that some of the outreach you are doing, especially with youth, is to actually steer them out of, falling into the same traps that, a lot of people, Indigenous and otherwise, find themselves falling into with addiction and mental health. So, on a completely unrelated justice note, I was talking with Compton after the last event, and there are some projects that one specific one that he brought up that's a real opportunity for the town and council to consider. So just for council and those following along, stay tuned. It's a pretty exciting project, and I can't wait to learn more about it and see how we can sort of shepherd it through the system until ultimately it comes to this table and we can talk about it more, publicly. So lots of good stuff happening. I really appreciate you coming in tonight, and I'm glad I was able to pull a little more out of you for the amazing things that you are doing in our community.
Thank you so much, everyone. If that's all the questions, I don't know if I'm supposed to get excused.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, Mark, I just want to thank you once again for coming and sharing all the wonderful things the Friendship Center does for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Beth, and thank you, Phil, and everyone on the council. I'm gonna toss.
Okay, anybody who's following along, we're at 15.2, County of Simcoe Local Immigration Partnership Council. I'd like to invite Morgan Deneau, the program supervisor, to come on up and present to council. Welcome.
Is it working? Oh, perfect. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, members of staff, and members of the public. I'm here today to present the 2023 Community Settlement Strategy. There is a presentation. I'll be pulled up. Sorry. Next slide, please. So before I talk about the 2023 Community Settlement Strategy, I just wanted to kind of introduce the team, which is the Simcoe County Local Immigration Partnership. Just a little bit of background about our team. We are partly funded by Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada, and we don't work directly with newcomers and immigrants, but we work rather with organizations and community partners to improve immigrant economic and social outcomes in the County of Simcoe. We're not alone to do this work. Our region is the County of Simcoe, but there are 36 local immigration partnership, or most commonly known as LIPs, across Ontario and 90 across Canada. Next slide, please. So to set a little bit of context, I just wanted to provide some data around immigration from the 2021 census data. In 2021, there were more than 82,000 immigrant residents in Simcoe County, which represent more than 15% of the total population of the county. Between 2016 and 2021, there were an increase of 33% of immigrant resident in this area, which is the most increase there has been in the province between 2016 and 2021. In the town of Midland, there were an increase of 14.9% of immigrant residents in that period. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of language data. In Simcoe County, between the period of 2016 and 2021, there were a 40.5% increase in resident reporting non-official mother tongue, so language other than English or French. And in the town of Midland, it was 19.8% increase. If we're looking at non-official mother tongue in Simcoe County, or in the town of Midland, the number was over 1,000 residents, which is 6% of the total population. Next slide, please. When we look at the diversity of our county, we also look at individual or residents that identify as part of a racialized group. In the county, 42.2% of Simcoe County immigrant resident identified as part of a racialized group between the period of, it was an increase between the period of 2016 and 2021, and which represent 12.4% of Simcoe County residents. In the town of Midland, 5% of the population identify as part of a racialized group. But when we were looking at newcomers and immigrants in Simcoe County, in the town of Midland, we can see that a third of immigrant residents identified as belonging to a racialized group. Next slide, please. Some data about direct arrival, just a little bit of definition about direct arrival. It is individuals that are identifying Simcoe County as their primary residence when they land in Canada. In 2015, we had about 700 people coming to Simcoe County directly, but there has been a sharp increase and it's continuing down that path. If you're looking at 2023 number, it's over 2,000 individuals that indicated that when they arrive at Pearson or when they arrive in Canada, their primary home is going to be in Simcoe County. This is a data that is important just for service providers to know, because an individual that comes directly in Simcoe County from their home country, they might need a little bit more support to settle in compared to a person that has arrived, let's say in the GTA, settled there for 2 to 3 years and then moved up to Simcoe County. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the community settlement strategy. To inform this community settlement strategy, there's been a lot of background work. One of them was to host several community consultation with service providers and employers throughout the county, but we also released an immigrant survey to inform the community settlement strategy. Next slide, please. One of the questions that was asked to immigrant residents in the county, the biggest challenges were when they settled in the county. The 5 main one was finding work, connecting with their community, making friends, social connection, accessing healthcare, finding housing, and accessing public transit. Next slide, please. Another question, or 2 other questions that were asked was, what was their experience settling in Simcoe County? And you can see in this data that it was fair or poor for about 30% of respondents of the survey. And then we asked what their sense of belonging was to their local community. And it was about the same. About a third individuals indicated that their sense of belonging was somewhat weak or very weak to their local community. Next slide, please. So the community settlement strategy. From those consultation with community partners, as well as the immigrant survey, 3 themes kind of emerged. And so the first one was living, which was improving access for basic needs for immigrants, working, encouraging labor force integration for immigrants, and belonging, creating pathways to community involvement for newcomers and immigrants. Next slide, please. And in the community settlement strategy, and I believe Deputy Clerk distributed some packages, so they are in the packages. The blueprint of the community settlement strategy is the community action plan. And the community action plan highlight 13 different recommendations for the community. Next slide, please. And I'm gonna go over some of them. Apologies, it's pretty small, but I'm going to try to kind of highlight the main ones. The first one that kind of comes across all 3 themes is provide a centralized location to access service delivery, social connection, and multicultural celebration. This particular recommendation was also part of the 2012 Community Settlement Strategy, which was the first release in Simcoe County. So it has not happened yet, but we're really hopeful that it will. Every time we talk to community partners and also newcomers and immigrant in the county, they were longing for a centralized place to access services and celebrate their culture. And so we're hoping that this would be in the form of a multicultural center. Two other recommendations were increasing access to local human social services and also increase interpretation while delivering services. I did share some language data with all of you. When we're looking at the data in Simcoe County currently, if you're a service provider or if you're a public servant and you see 8 clients a day or residents a day, one of them will not have English or French as their mother tongue. So this is why interpretation is important. Under living and working, decrease immigrant experience of racism and discrimination. As we saw in the data, a third of immigrants and newcomers that live in the town of Midland are identifying as belonging as racialized group. So this is very important for an individual that is coming into our community and settling that sense of belonging. Under living, increase equitable access to local housing. We know, and with the community of a whole, we've seen that housing is an issue in across the country, really, but there are heightened barriers for newcomers and immigrants when they come to our communities due to lack of credit history, Canadian credit history, or lack of reference or Canadian reference. A lot of landlords the common practice for landlords really is to ask for 6 to 12 months of rent upfront for an individual to be able to access housing. Under working, there's a different recommendations, so I can't see. Increased labor force recruitment and retention of immigrants in the county, increase the pace. Sorry, I'm just going to look at my slide, and I apologize. My glasses are not magnifying completely. There we go. Increase the pace of newcomers' official language learning. There are link and English learning classes in the county, but they're not available across all municipalities. A lot of newcomers that don't have English as their first language and are looking to increase their English skills to access employment are having to travel throughout the county to access language classes. Under belonging, there are several recommendations as well. Increase multicultural celebration, introduce immigrant and international students to local communities, increase leadership opportunities for immigrants and international students, and connect immigrants and international students to volunteer opportunities. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for the town of Midland? It means capitalizing on immigrants' growth in adjacent communities for labor force and service delivery, increasing diversity, and there is an increasing diversity as we saw in the data in the community. So it's an increasing need to address equity, diversity, and inclusion in our communities. It also means that it needs to address, communities needs to address the lack of immigrant-specific programming in our municipalities and providing connections to community resource and services. Next slide, please. There are opportunities in the county to participate in different activities that kind of meet the recommendation of the community settlement strategy. Here's a list of them, and I'm going to go through them, but participate in the annual Week of Welcome. The Midland Public Library hosted an event on September 21st as part of Week of Welcome. It was really well attended. 82 individuals attended the event. It was a very successful event, so we're hoping that next year there'll be an event in Midland again. Participate in the annual It Starts campaign. The It Starts campaign is a public awareness campaign that addresses racism and discrimination in our communities. This year will be our 8th year. Enroll in municipal staff in the Diversity Hub The County of Simcoe has an online platform with a lot of different equity, diversity, and inclusion resources that are accessible for all for free. And as part of the membership of the Diversity Hub, there are lunch and learns that are virtually provided every month on a specific topic. This week was a workshop on anti-Islamophobia. Support the annual Newcomer Recognition Awards. This year will be our 12th year, and this will be on November 7th. And at this event, we will be releasing the Simcoe County Workplace Inclusion Charter. And we encourage every employers in the county to participate in the Workplace Inclusion Charter. Provide space for newcomer programming and multicultural celebration, and finally include immigrant and strategic planning activities. And this is my presentation. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. I invite any comment or questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I did want to touch on the ESL classes. This has been an ongoing discussion I've been having with experts in our community on the lack of ESL classes that we have here. Just the statistics that you gave, 1 in 8 people are not going to speak English when they are coming into our community. And also 48% of immigrants say finding work is an issue. I know from speaking with the experts in our community that it's not necessarily finding work that they're having an issue with, it's that language barrier. Is Simcoe County planning to address opening programming or programming needs within Midland or northern communities so that people do not have to travel in order to obtain these skills? Just learning that a daily class is the best opportunity for getting people into the workforce faster. And that's not an opportunity that anyone in our community has because of the traveling aspect.
So Simcoe County doesn't deliver immigrant programming directly to newcomers and immigrants, but settlement services and the school board do provide English classes. It is true that at this time in the north of the county, there's very few opportunities for newcomers to access. Every 5 years, there is a call for proposal for immigration through Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada through the federal government to increase programming. And every year there is that ask. I'm not sure if settlement services have asked for programming, English learning classes in Midland. I think so, but I would have to defer to the settlement services in the county. But there's definitely what we've heard and what we see in the data, there's increasing need in the town of Midland for sure. And there are strong community members and residents of Midland that are doing an amazing job. I know that there are classes that are being delivered right now at the public library. They're not funded directly from IRCC, but because of the need, the work is being done by resident and community members. And so I wanted to kind of give them a big shout out.
Follow-up?
Yes, thank you. The town, the library is what I was referring to as being the very little resources we have that are not able to grow the workforce as fast as possible and allow these people to be able to actually learn English on a fast-paced basis. I do appreciate the work. I've been in contact with them a lot about it, and I really hope to do more. So I would like to know, Simcoe County, you said, does not offer programming. So how does Town of Midland advocate? Does the county advocate for us? You said yearly, but you'd have to follow up with the settlement services. How can we as a council and town advocate for the need in our community?
That's a very good question. It would be through the federal government or through the provincial government to increase funding. We do provide reports to the ministries with data and the need. And so that's kind of how I would invite counselors and community members to also talk to local government representative, federal and provincial government representative.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Meredith?
No, it shuts me out. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost, through you to Sandra, and thank you for the presentation. One thing that caught my eye was when immigrants land at Pearson and in Simcoe County in 2023, there was 2,300 immigrants landing, and they come into Simcoe County and get housing. I'm just wondering how they find housing when there's so many in Simcoe County that cannot find housing. Just wondering how that works.
So this data was just to show direct landing in the county of Simcoe. Individuals that come to Simcoe County and kind of land in person and indicate that they would like to live in Simcoe County. They don't necessarily have housing. They're not provided housing. They usually would indicate they're coming to Simcoe County because they know somebody maybe, or they've been in the county before, but they're not provided housing.
Mayor Gordon?
Thank you very much through you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the presentation today. I've had the privilege of meeting some of our newcomers at a couple of their little celebrations. They've got some space down in the basement of the YMCA that's available to them. And I met some of the volunteer educators too that are working on ESL teaching, and they're always looking for more people to help teach. You don't have to be a certified teacher. You need to have a basic understanding of the English language and be able to explain the difference between there, and there. And why sometimes it's read and sometimes it's read, and these kind of things that we all just innately wrap our minds around that are just perplexing to people trying to learn English for the first time. So the fabric of our community, the mosaic of Midland and North Simcoe is changing clearly. I mean, the stats show it, but all you have to do is leave your house, go for a drive, visit any number of our merchants or retailers, and you'll see the fabric of the community is changing, or any of our schools. So the services for newcomers, the kids, when they get enrolled in school, they tend to pick up the languages very quickly. The parents, though, if they're still communicating with their mother tongue at home, often will get left behind. And my understanding is, to get that coveted permanent resident status for those that are coming is, from conflict areas, they need to have their English brought to a working level, quite a high working level within a finite amount of time, or it's not happening and off they go. So these are the challenges. So as we see more people immigrating into Canada and into North Simcoe specifically, because it is such a beautiful area, the need for the services that you're not directly providing, but helping to navigate with funding, and also the metrics and data you're collecting to educate us, they're just increasing exponentially almost daily. And with conflict areas in the Middle East and conflict areas, we're still seeing a lot of folks coming over from conflict on the the European theater. I've met them, and they're just so absolutely enthralled, and they feel welcomed by the community and are loving it. But they're struggling, to Councillor Meredith's point, trying to find housing because they are either being sponsored by somebody or they're just living in someone's basement. They're not quite couch surfing most of the time, but it's almost that. And a lot of times they have their kids with them. So the immigrant population and the the evolving fabric of diversity in our community is here. It's undeniable. There's no stopping it. Not that we'd want to, but I mean, some people would feel uncomfortable because it's different than what the one, you know, the community they grew up in. But this is our reality. So trying to find new ways, especially with the English language, because it all starts off with communication skills, is pivotal. So if there are ways that the county can, you know, broadcast out to the municipalities that form Simcoe County, if there's ways we can actually action beyond what we're already doing and trying to get houses built and, you know, get infrastructure going and you know, allow for the growth. If there's other things we could be doing, please let us know, either at the county council, and Deputy Mayor and I commit to bring that back dutifully to our council, or through the, you know, ongoing efforts that, like tonight, doing these deputations. Because I think we're all in agreement, we'd like to do more, we just don't know how to do it. And a lot of it's beyond us, out of our funding ability, not even in our wheelhouse. And yet we live the reality trying to support residents in our community, and to a large degree, not being able to because of simple language barrier issues. So thanks for coming tonight and, you know, sharing this with us. It's really food for thought.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, members of council, and thank you, members of staff.
Okay, moving on to number 16, the committee and local board delegations or memo. We have none. We will move to 17 after a 10-minute bio break. Okay, continuing, number 17, reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration. That includes presentations by consultants regarding a report under consideration. 17.1, CSR 2024-87 financial report as of August 31st, 2024. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Major and Mayor Gordon. Okay. Let staff report CSR 2024-87 financial report as at August 31st, 2024, dated October 16th, 2024, be received, and that the public art conservation project budget be increased by $20,000 to reflect the grant funds that will be received to fund the additional art conservation work, and that the additional NSSRC roof replacement cost at $34,391 be funded from the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF, and that the insurance deductible of $25,000 paid on behalf of the Midland Public Library be funded from the legal risk operating budget. Do we have any questions or comments? Councillor Ball.
Thank you. I just had a quick question about the public art conservation project budget. I'm just wondering if this increase is just for a specific project, if you can just, or just this specific year, and that this is not an ongoing increase of $20,000. I just want that clarification.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Prost, to Councillor Ball. This is a one-time project, so we did manage to secure some grant funds to do some additional mural restoration work. And so that's why the budget, additional budget is required at this time, but it is a one-time project. Thank you.
Mayor Gordon.
Just for folks following along to make sure I got a grasp on this, typically the grants require matching funding. We don't, when we apply for grants, they don't fund things 100%. So if we apply for more funding, there's a percentage we're responsible for, which probably knocked us over into this 20,000. Is that correct in this case?
So actually, we already had an approved project that we were able to leverage to get this grant. So this 20,000 that we're adding is completely grant funds. And this is just really an audit sort of thing, right? So that the budget is what we need it to be. But the 20,000 is strictly grant funds.
Thanks. So we didn't increase the scope of this project for this funding.
We just get to do more.
Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Yes, through you to, I guess, CFO Barron. I was questioning the $20,000 grant, or the increase. Also, if we look down at the NSSRC, the 34,391, and we're looking at the capital, the capital updates on so as I read many of the go through this, if you look under the NSSRC, which is on page, I think, 15, the roof repair, it says it's complete. But there's also a remaining balance of 34,391, which is equal to the additional cost of 34,391 that's been funding through the community building fund. So is this column correct? This is budget remaining at the end of August 31st, and the numbers actually are the same. So, and then if you look at the other areas of, you see completed projects, you see in the culture and tourism, which we were just talking about. I'm just trying to find it here. On page, where was it? I lost it. I just had it. The remaining budgets in there are also the actual equivalent to the approved budget. So I'm a little confused on that column, because that should be excess funds remaining and not used, or because I use this chart a lot through the budget process, and I refer back to that, as you know. So I just want to make sure if this is an error, or am I reading it properly? And I just picked up that on, sorry, and I just picked that up today while I was scrolling through it. So, and I didn't have a chance to ask the question prior to the meeting, and I apologize for that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost, to Councillor Meredith. So yes, if I go to page 15 and I'm looking at the roof repair project for the rec center. So right now it shows that the 24 approved budget is 580,000. And it shows in that spent column that you were just referring to as of August 31st, that's where it shows the 614,391. So over to the far right, that budget remaining, that's actually a negative, and you can kind of see it. You know, brackets would be better because people tend to pick up on negative better if it's a bracket, but it is a negative. And so that means it's overspent. So we did overspend by just under 35,000 because of additional insulation that was required to replace that roof. So that's why you have that motion in front of you tonight to request the additional funds. And we are fortunate that we do have funds available in that Community Canada Building Fund to pay for that unexpected overage. So I believe the rest of maybe your questions may be the same thing. But I can go through more if you would like. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see a negative, but it's in, I guess it's in the, or a line, it's in the other column. So I imagine that negative should be in front of the 34,391. Because I did read the actual comments, and so anyways, it clears that up. The other question when I'm sorry, through you, Deputy Mayor Prost, the other question I would have pertaining to this spreadsheet is when we're looking at completed projects and we have surpluses in these areas, are we pulling? We're asking for, in case of the NSSRC, right? And they have, there's a project complete. If you look under their, on page 15 again, you have project complete. And there's funding there of, under interior doors, there's 35, this is where it doesn't make sense again. So the budget was 35,000, spent was 35,000, and budget remaining is 35,000. So that should be budget remaining is zero. No, I'm reading it wrong. So I just want to get this straight before budget.
Yes, if I may. So I think it's maybe the spent column and the budget remaining column that maybe there's some confusion there. So on that interior door project, for example, you're right in that the comment says complete, but the spending to date as of August 31st is zero. So that means we're waiting on the invoice. So that's why it shows a budget remaining of still 35,034. So once we process that invoice, it will get recorded as spent, and that budget remaining will be reduced.
Thank you. So anything I see like that is basically a zero. So if anybody's doing that through budget time and using this chart, so if everything lines up as in, that's a zero. Just in case we don't get the funds before January, the end of January. Will we get an updated chart on this before budget? Or it would be nice?
That is the plan, yes, to have an updated report.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, you've heard the motion. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, 17.2. CSR 2024 88, sponsorship, advertising, and charitable giving policy. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Patel and Councillor East. So the motion is that staff report CSR 2024 88, sponsorship, advertising, and charitable giving policy dated October 16th, 2024 be received, and that council approves the draft sponsorship, advertising, and charitable giving policy. Do we have any questions or comments? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. I asked for this report to be pulled because I really don't understand there's no clarity to me. It says the purpose is to create a consistent and controlled approach to evaluate, decline, or accept sponsorship agreement, including but not limited to corporate sponsorship, charitable giving, and naming rights and advertising. But is there a rate or a guideline? Like we're just going to create an approach and evaluate each one individually? So that's what I had trouble with. And then it said someplace, oh, I'll let you answer that first, please.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councilor McDonald. So there will be a procedure associated with different types of charitable giving, whether it's a corporate sponsorship, whether it's a donation, because there will be nuances to those individual activities. This policy is designed to set the framework by which we would create those procedures. So it is the strategic level associated with the framework of a charitable giving policy. The procedures themselves will be different. So you'll see mentioned in there the sponsorship agreement template. There will be a template for sponsorship agreements. As long as a sponsorship fell into the parameters of that agreement, it could go through and be signed according to the roles and responsibilities that are in it. But in some cases, you may get special requests, for example, from the organization or individual wishing to make a sponsorship, and those would be dealt with individually.
Do we have a charitable donation number, the town? And if we do, okay.
Through Deputy Mayor Prost to Councillor McDonald, yes, we do. So we do issue charitable tax donations receipts if they are applicable.
Thank you. So, for instance, would be the golf tournament. Okay. And then, could you explain to me, please, if I may continue, the exclusion does not apply to advertising paid for by the town to promote town events. And then the naming of town assets, if I could have an example of, would that be like naming a tractor, or you have to pay to name the tractor, or how does that work? And then the other question is, do we have advertising on our town buses now? Okay, so that advertising isn't following any procedure bylaw. It just happens.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councilor McDonald. So we do have advertising. The rates for that, both the transit and the rec center, are set at council and the fees and charges bylaw activity. So it is part of our fees and charges bylaw. Yeah, so it's already covered under that. With reflection to the exclusion of naming of assets. So if the town instigates a naming of asset, like a street naming, that falls under a different policy. This would be if someone wanted to give us money to name an asset, like we've talked about with naming rights for the arena. So that's the differentiation. If the town is instigating naming an asset, it doesn't fall into this procedure because it is not subject to a sponsorship or charitable giving agreement.
Thank you. I just didn't hear what your example was for naming someone paying to name what kind of asset?
So the arena, for example, and the naming rights was one of the ideas brought forward from the user group research we did on the rec center, that you could put that out to a competitive procurement process to name the arena, similar to other municipalities.
Okay, I guess I'll just read it again. If no one else has any problem with it. And so this is just a guideline. The procedures are to be set after that. And do we see them or not? No.
You may, Deputy Mayor. Generally, the procedures wouldn't come to council, but you do see in the policy that sponsorship agreements that are above 50,000, as well as any sponsorship agreement that is asking for exclusive rights throughout the town, would automatically come to council according to the policy.
Thank you.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you. I think I have a problem with approving something so vague, specifically in regards to program and special event sponsorship. I know that we've had community members and organizations come through looking for Town of Midland to partner with them for events that they're hosting externally, and it's been a lot of red tape for that. This, to me, looks like another barrier for that. So maybe you can, I guess, clarify program and special event sponsorship without us having the procedures in place and those just being approved. I don't like attaching my name to something to approve this that's that vague.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Ball. So this wouldn't apply to third-party events. This is if a realtor wanted to sponsor a dodgeball tournament at, or a dodgeball program at the rec center, for example. So they would put that proposal in and it would be subject to all of the policy items here, but then be reviewed. So the policy allows us to say, in the case of a donation proposal, it allows us to do the assessment to determine whether that donation is actually going to pay for itself, for example. So we've seen in other municipalities, donations end up costing the taxpayer. This policy lets us set the framework so that both the public, council, and staff know what has to be done before we can enter into any of those sponsorship agreements. It would not apply to third-party events.
Okay, thank you for clarifying it. It's a very vague report, so I would have rather seen that listed so that it doesn't have program and special event sponsorship. It's very vague, so maybe for future, just to include that would be helpful. Thank you for your clarification.
Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. Maybe I can shed a bit of light on this. So this isn't about people looking for money from us to sponsor things. It's the opposite of that. It's them wanting to sponsor ours. So like our Public Works Palooza, maybe Acme Inc. wants to have their name on it. So whatever our costs are of hosting that would be offset by Acme's sponsorship of our Public Works Palooza. So this is for the inbound, not the outbound. And the other thing is one of the tasks we've given our CAO and senior leadership team is to go through and find all the gaps in how we've just been doing business, kind of like cowboys for decades now. No policy. It's just whoever's at the table at the time figures out how we're going to do it, and we do it, which isn't always transparent. It certainly isn't recreatable, because as the names and the faces change, so do the way we do business, and that's not the way you run a town. So staff have been tasked with creating policy where we don't have it. And so this is part of the ongoing effort. So this is good. Policies are generally vague. The procedures are, more granular, because they start to define how the policy is implemented. So this shouldn't be super complicated and, prescriptive. It's meant to be wide open, but show the scope on what it applies to and what it doesn't. So I think maybe just getting, program and special event sponsorship, just the clarity that this is for inbound money, not outbound. Hopefully that makes you feel a little better about it, but it's meant to be a little high level, because that's the way policies typically are. So thanks, staff, for finding this one and starting to build on it. This is a big opportunity as a revenue source and a revenue stream for us, other than picking the taxpayer's pocket. I know there's lots of businesses out there that would love to have their name associated with wildly successful things we do, like Public Works Palooza. I don't know why I came up with that one tonight, but we see how many people show up at it. Well, just imagine some of our local businesses, not even restricted to just one, having their booths there set up and injecting money in to help offset that day. Or just injecting money because they want to be part of it, because all of our families and kids are there. So these are opportunities that I think that we've kind of left on the table for years. And now we're looking for them as ways to offset, our growing taxes. So I commend staff for this, and I look forward to the fruits of the labor, as well as that naming one, because the arena sponsorship is going to be probably our biggest one we've got. And that'll be something that goes on in perpetuity. And so I do look forward to seeing where we land with that and what that process looks like, so that, of course, it's all open. It's done by a third party. So there's none of us getting involved in who gets picked. And as I've cautioned before, sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for, because it could end up being called the Kleenex Center or something, right? But, whoever's got the biggest bag of money is likely going to get their name on that building, and that's going to help our beleaguered ratepayers. So thanks for this policy, and I do look forward to it being implemented, and have to trust that the procedures we put in place are going to adequately reflect the spirit of the policy.
Seeing no further hands up for questions or comments. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Just have you compared this policy to other municipalities? And am I being over precautious with the vagueness of it? And so, for instance, if we do offer for someone to sponsor the North Simcoe Rec Center to be the Kleenex Center or whatever, that is then, with this policy, is in the total hands of the staff. They go for a request for proposal. We never see anything. So to me, I would like to see more steps in this policy, like there's the
18 Deputy
scope,
Mayor
there's the
Councilor McDonald.
conclusion. You know,
So in that specific example, this policy does protect you. So there was a group authoring team. The names are in the report, but we brought in Karen Milling from the Manager of Culture and Community with all their work with tourism and special events. We had Mr. Brissett from the Rec Center. We had extensive consultation with our legal and risk program manager in Julie, and then with Ms. Barron and her team. So there was an extensive authoring team. We also took it out to our stakeholders within the organization. And as part of that process, we did a comprehensive municipal scan looking at many other sponsorship policies across Ontario, and picked basically the best of what we had there, and then had our legal expert go through it. So it is designed for things like the naming rights. You would see that. You are specifically identified in the policy that would come to council. That proposal would come to council. So it would not only be subject to a competitive procurement process to make sure that we are being open, transparent to the mayor's point, but it would also come to council for approval.
thank you. You've heard the motion. All in favor? Not in favor? One. Defeated. That's carried. On to 17.3, CSR 2024 91, 2025 holiday observance closure schedule. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor East, Councillor Major. The staff report CSR 2024 91, 2025 holiday observance closure schedule dated October 16th, 2024 be received, and that the town of Midland municipal offices be closed at 12 noon on Wednesday, December 24th, 2025 through Thursday, January 1st, 2026, and reopen for regular business hours on Friday, January 2nd, 2026, and that the statutory holidays and public non-statutory holidays be observed in accordance with the schedule herein, and the municipal offices will be closed accordingly. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meredith.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. So I pulled this report, and reason being is there's been more than on one occasion when I'm out in the community, there was a comment with the closure of the town office, and going in conversation and saying, all the residents, well, not all the residents, these particular constituents, we're basically wondering why is the office closed? Why are the non-stat holidays, being given as holidays to a normal working day? So I said, well, I'll bring it up at council when time comes, and here I am. So I'm asking the question, and quite honestly, when I was on the other side of the fence, and I'm part-time here and part-time on the other side of the fence, I asked the same question as a tax-paying citizen, as a hardworking Midland community member, my tax dollars at work, and here we are. Giving 3 days, in this particular case, 2025, the 29th, 30th, and 31st, non-stat holidays. We're giving them away as holidays. So that must cost the town, the ratepayer, some dollars, because those would be, to what it looks like, is a paid holiday. as staff have their, their contracts already done and their daily or weekly or monthly pay. So the question is, I guess, why are we doing it? I know it's here, it's a past practice. So I'm bringing it up right now and today, and seeing, what are the costs here? Are we, with staff time being paid on a non-stat holiday, when there is much work to get done, in the municipality? So the question would be, is why is it done? Are we matching the unions because the unions are off? So and that's basically what I kind of explained to them. And the feedback was, well, it's not a union job. So I'm asking the question. Maybe we can have some clarity for people out there watching tonight.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Prost, to Councillor Meredith. You are correct. It is in our collective agreements. It is also quite common to observe non-statutory holidays. The statutory holidays are the minimum under the employment standards, but there are other, as you can see on that list, mentioned holidays that are recommended that you, as an employer of choice or any employer, recognize and observe. So in being consistent with historical as well as our collective agreements, that's why we've maintained our list the way it is. It's also why we haven't entertained any additional holidays that have been also recognized in other municipalities. We've kind of stayed the status quo. Why do we do it? Because we're non-union, but for the staff that are non-union, their majority are unionized staff here. So you're looking at very few non-union that would be not observing these holidays should we have gone down that path. And again, going back to our council strategic plan and being an employer of choice, I'm not sure I would recommend ever to do something less than what our bargaining unit partners are observing.
Thank you. No,
Councillor Patel.
no, thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to staff. If we were to close for the 24th, would the town save any money from any, I guess, salaries we would have to be paid out? Maybe just instead of even being open till 12, why not just stay closed?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Patel, if we were to close for the entire day beyond what we've done here, right now, if staff choose to take the rest of that day off, they take it from their vacation bank, their balance. So if we chose to close for the entire day, we would have to go back and look at the cost of that for all of the staff, and then come back to council with a cost factor on that one.
Follow up.
Possible to look into that?
Sorry, through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Patel. So I should also note that this has been a past practice for quite some time, that closure of that week. What we have done the last 2 years, I believe, and when the new compensation policy came into effect last year, was grant those additional 3 days as essentially vacation time, right? So an employee who maybe has 2 or 3 weeks vacation now has 2 or 3 weeks of vacation plus 3 days. So again, that's sort of on that employer of choice, trying to extend additional benefits, but at no cost to the town, because we were closed anyway. We do include vacation time in our annual budget. So there really is no additional impact to the budget for this. Thank you.
Mayor Gordon.
Just to keep following up on the fact that, we have these collective agreements and that most of our staff are unionized. Hypothetically, let's just say that we kept the office open 29th, 30th, and 31st. With almost all the people that actually do the work at the town, like the grunt work, the people that greet you at the window and type stuff into computers and answer your questions, none of them are going to be here because they're all unionized and they're off. So that leaves, you know, our executive team who, quite frankly, couldn't do those jobs of the unionized frontline workers, just to be fair. I mean, they're great, intelligent people, but that's not what their role is here. So we really don't have the staff. Like from a like a simple brain perspective, like the commonsensical way that I sometimes try and think too, it seems great on its face, but in practice, it's like impractical because none of the people that actually do all the frontline work are going to be working other than the ones that are plowing the roads and got to be on duty anyway. To have the office open and staffed by a skeletal crew of executive directors and director folks, you know, like what, they're not going to be able to help anybody at the front counter. We look more like chumps to anyone that came in because they couldn't answer some of those simple questions or know how to look it up. So I'm not trying to trivialize or diminish the role of our executive team, but everyone has their jobs and their parts to play in the puzzle. So I think the limiting factor is the fact that most of our frontline people that actually do the work of the town every day are going to be at home with their families because their collective agreement entitles them to do that. There's nobody really left to keep the place open.
Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. So in saying that, I think it would be really important on the org chart, which I believe we requested the updated one, that it would be really great to see who those non-union employees are. And therefore, when I get questions and possibly some other counselors, that we can actually have that number. It's 5 employees or 8 employees because everybody else is on the union. So it'll be better off for me to explain it that way than they think the whole town of Midland is off and collecting 3 days of non-stat holidays and getting paid for them. So that would be great. And I believe that org chart will be coming to us by the end of the year. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All in favor? Opposed? You're opposed? In favor? Unanimous, that's carried. Okay, on to 17.4, CSR 2024-92, Provincial Policy Statement 2024, a new policy framework for land use planning in Ontario. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor McDonald and Councillor Major. This The staff report CSR 2024-92 Provincial Policy Statement 2024, a new policy framework for land use planning in Ontario be received, and that staff be authorized to initiate a conformity exercise for the Town of Midland official plan to ensure consistency with Provincial Policy Statement 2024. Any questions or comments? Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. So this was the provincial policy statement that we're seeing now which kind of I think sparked the earlier public meeting with the property. This is probably why that property is coming up. I could be wrong, but I assume that's why it's coming up for development. Listening, I think it was Paul Abrams at AMO, I believe. Was he the minister that did the policy, approve or pass the provincial policy statement? Anyways, my question is on page 4, page 4B of the report. Just need a little bit of clarification on the the language here, the expansion of developable lands to the south of Midland could reduce or slow the demand for development in Midland by absorbing a larger share of growth in the region. So I'm just wondering how the expansion could reduce the development. So if you can clear that up for me, that'd be great. Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Prost to Councilor Emeritus. So Midland is part of the County of Simcoe Regional Market Area, and there is a fixed amount of demand for housing in Simcoe County. And the province from about 2006 till now has been very strictly regulating where growth can occur and prohibiting the establishment of new settlement areas, and had a very strict process to expanding settlement areas. And by expanding settlement areas, what I mean is creating more land for development. And when you have more land opened up for development to the south of Midland, so say Innisfil or Bradford, West Glenbury, those municipalities will absorb that growth that was heading north out of the GTA. So that's how this new document can impact smaller municipalities like us.
Thank you. I was interpreting as not south of Midland, but the Midland South End. That's how I was interpreting this as. So that's why I was a little confused, but makes sense now. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. On page 5, housing options and affordability, there's a section that says to do this, municipalities will need to evaluate their housing need and require that developers provide options to satisfy a community's housing need. This will be done by establishing housing targets, which are required by PPS 2024. So how are we going to, have we already evaluated our housing needs? Or if we haven't, how are we going to do that is my first question.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Prost to Councilor McDonald. So at present, the County of Simcoe does housing needs assessments, and not just in terms of the type of units that we need, but the number of units that we need to absorb growth to a fixed planning horizon. So at present, the county's official plan amendment number 3 is before the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for approval. And that official plan amendment would assign a population forecast to the town of Midland to the year 2051. And then it would be up to Midland to disseminate or locate where we think that population growth should go through an official plan conformity exercise. And so that's how it happens today. After October 20th, the province suggests that we continue to use the county's numbers. However, we can amend those numbers or revise those numbers as appropriate when we do our own growth management study. So it would be the first time for the town of Midland to do this type of study since 2006. So there are some guidelines from the province as to how to do these studies, but we're not sure if they're going to remain in place.
Sounds something to look forward to. The other question is, with natural heritage, the general natural heritage policies of this PPS 2020 include the no negative impact test. So we had that, was there a no negative impact test available, or will there be one for the property we were discussing earlier on this evening?
That's correct. That test is maintained. So the applicant will have to demonstrate that any development occurring on the property will have to have no negative impact as defined by the provincial planning statement.
A follow up on that, that would have to be proven when he submits, say he's going to build some homes or whatever. It's at that point that that test comes forward, or proof?
That's a great question. It's a bit complex in that the study itself that's being proposed to support the official plan amendment has to demonstrate that there are no significant natural heritage features on the property, and that develop, and as such, when you develop the property, there will be no negative impact. Given that we don't have a development concept and a rezoning will be required to facilitate further development, I anticipate that additional environmental work will be required. So the OPA, or the official plan amendment, is just a first step regarding the development of this property.
Miigwech. Thank you.
Counselor Ball.
Thank you. I just wanted to expand on that no negative impact statement based off the provincial policy. So we're not overriding that. It's based off of what they're deeming no negative impact, which is different from what we are deeming no negative impact, correct?
Through Deputy Mayor Prost, the test for no negative impact is defined by the province. The council's decision shall be consistent with that definition, and our recommendation to council will also be consistent with that definition.
Thank you. I assume our audience before did not want to hear that answer, so.
Counselor Meredith.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, or clear the name that I said Paul Abrams, I believe. It was Paul Calandra. That's why Steve was looking at me kind of funny there. And I think Abrams is he the integrity commissioner? So yeah. So anyways, I'm sort of getting the names, online, but anyways, Jeff Abrams. Well, Paul, Jeff. It was an Abrams, but anyways, but I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, council, you've heard the question. All in favor? Unanimous, that's carried. Okay, number 18, notices of motion. Does anybody have a notice of motion? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor Deputy Prost. I have prepared a notice of motion that I will forward to the clerk. I can read it now. Sure, why not? I prepared it. Whereas in Ontario, according to the Highway Traffic Act, the statutory speed limit in urban areas is 50 kilometers an hour when there is no speed limit posted. Whereas many communities across Ontario typically lower speed limits down to 40 kilometers on local streets. However, there's a further push by transportation and health officials to reduce that speed limit on local streets down to 30 kilometers an hour. The rationale behind this is that research demonstrates that vehicle-pedestrian collisions begin to result in significantly more injuries or facilities when they involve speeds over 30 kilometers. Whereas adopting a town-wide standard provides predictability for drivers in knowing what the speed limit on a given street. And whereas a speed limit reduction is a relatively quick and affordable way to reducing traffic-related injuries and fatalities. And whereas Midland's Transportation Master Plan recommends a study about speed, may it be resolved that staff be directed to provide a report and recommendations to council regarding lowering the speed limit throughout the town of Midland, including an evaluation plan and the cost of changing existing signage on streets and adding new signage. For next council meeting. What was that? I'll send it to you, yes, of course.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any more notices of motion? Seeing none, we'll move along to general announcements. Councillor Major.
Just announce that the Friday night, the Midland Legion's having their spaghetti dinner from 4:30 to 7. And there is takeout.
Counselor Ball.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I guess, give praise to the Midland Cultural Center's annual fundraiser event that happened. It was nice seeing all the talent in our community, as well as Councillor Patel invited us to a celebration Navrati. Am I saying that correctly? And it was an amazing celebration, and I was glad to meet some of our residents in Midland that celebrate that celebration.
I'm not sure how to backtrack on this, but there is more notices of motion that aren't on my sheet, or at least one. Is it?
Deputy Mayor, the notices of motion are just given tonight. The motions for which notice was given is in formal session, and that's once the chair is given back to the mayor.
I apologize. Thank you. So we're still in announcements. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I would just like to announce that the town staff and some committee members and the public library are busy planning a second symposium on hope, health, and housing. November 14th, save that date, and more details to follow. But I'm grateful that the Midland Library is involved and they're planning the afternoon session, and the town will be hosting the evening session for residents to come and listen to what's been happening and field their questions.
Mayor Gordon.
Thanks, always good for a few. Tomorrow is Light It Up for NDEAM. And you may ask yourself, what the heck is NDEAM? I'll tell you. It's National Disability Employment Awareness Day. And our lights, which we have out front by our flagpoles, have the ability to change colors, so we can change colors to go with the different color schemes for various celebrations. So they are going to be blue and purple. So if you drive by Town Hall and you see blue and purple lights out front, that's what it's all about. It's National Disability Employment Awareness Day. So we talk about the challenges that newcomers face with language barriers, trying to get jobs in this economy. Well, imagine being disabled, whether it's a visible disability or an invisible disability. So that's what tomorrow's all about. There's no official proclamation or flag raising or anything like that, so don't come at any particular time, but just wanted to explain what the color change is for. And also, I've got a bunch of events this week. I don't usually rattle through all the events because I'd be here forever. But I do want to call out the 150th anniversary of Calvary Baptist Church. That's on Sunday. They've got an event that I'll be attending and sharing the certificate, congratulating them on 150 years in our community. So if you're a member of a congregation of Calgary Baptist Church, or just a fellow Christian or somebody interested who wants to join them for the party, it's happening at from 10 to 11. And that is at 598 King Street.
Seeing no further hands up, we'll move on to number 20. I have a motion here. It's moved by Councillor Major, seconded by Councillor Meredith, that the Committee of the Whole rise and report. All in favor? That's carried.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I have a motion here moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the recommendations of the Committee of the Whole for the meeting October 16, 2024 be adopted as resolutions of council. All those in favor? Any opposed? As carried. Now I will, because the next motion for which notice was given is mine, I will pass the chair over to Madam Deputy Mayor again. Boomerang. And I'll need a seconder.
Moved by Mayor Gordon, seconded by Councillor Bald. That the pedestrian crossings at the signalized intersections on King Street downtown between Bayshore Drive and Yonge Street be reprogrammed to automatically activate the pedestrian crossing at each intersection while still maintaining the existing programming to activate the AODA audible calls on the push button with a push and hold function. Mayor Gordon, can you explain?
Certainly, this has been a lament of many people in the community over the years since the big dig was completed, about the different way that the buttons and the pedestrian crossing lights were programmed for the main street as opposed to other areas in the municipality. Most recently, it came up as a topic at a BIA event I was at, and that got me thinking that, you know what? There's just no good reason in my mind to keep it the way we've been doing it when it seems to irritate and perplex people to no end. Long story short is if you arrive at an intersection on downtown and any of our many controlled intersections on King Street, and you stand there waiting to cross and choose not to press the button, the light will turn green, but your don't walk sign will stay lit. And if you're like, oh geez, I don't want to, break the law, so you press the button, that's not helping you. You got to wait for a whole other cycle. So effectively what I'm asking us to reprogram is put these like most other lights where, whenever the green light, notwithstanding an advanced turn, which is going to tell you to stop so you don't get mowed down, but when the green light is presented to vehicles, the cross symbol is presented to pedestrians without having to interface with any buttons, just to make it simple. The folks that need the AODA assistance and the chirp, 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 that if we had it on all the time would drive people to hurl themselves out of their windows downtown. That's still present, but it'll be manually activated by pressing the button. So effectively, it's putting these to a standard that we enjoy anywhere else in most other communities and in many other places in town. The wording of this and how we got to it, I had Mr. Sobel help me with because, there's some technical stuff in here. And long story short is this was an idea that came up with a standard, and it didn't seem like the hill that Mr. Sobel wanted to die on to keep it. In the past, we've had some really fervent support for it by previous folks who aren't here any longer. And I just thought it'd be a good time to float this by council and see if you're willing to kind of normalize or standardize the pedestrian experience in our downtown core, especially for our visitors who, remain perplexed at the way it works. Mr. Sobel, if I've mischaracterized anything or you need to add anything, please feel free to.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, Mayor Gordon. I guess I can kind of provide a little bit of a history if you want of how we got to where we are, really, if that would help things. As many of you would remember, prior to the big dig, we had 3 signalized intersections downtown, King and Bayshore, King and Hugo, and King and Yonge Street. King and Hugo was the only one that had an audible AODA call to it. It was automatic. It was calling all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We got a lot of noise complaints about it from the residents in the areas, especially in COVID times when people had nowhere to go but be home. So when the time came to add 2 more additional intersections downtown and add in the new systems, we really tried to put something in that would reduce our complaints, and noise being one of them. We also didn't want to discriminate against anybody and any type of uses, so we made it consistent across the board. You want to cross the street, you press the button. Fast forward a few months after operation, we found some concerns. Like you said, Mayor Gordon, you miss the green, you press it, you don't go anywhere. So we played with the timing a few times since then. There's now a short window, which you can catch it. If you miss the window, you don't get it. And the advanced left turns can have an impact on that. So really, that's really where we've been. We wanted to be consistent across all users. It is true that a lot of places do have an automatic, and as well, other places still press the button. I know a lot of focus is always given to the city of Toronto. They have a vision 0 per se, but you dig into that, and they do have a lot of intersections that are still the way that ours is operating currently today, that you have to push the button across. So it's a bit of a mixed bag across the board. But there are a lot that are automatic, and you do have to do something extra to activate the AODA call. So if anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Sorry, one thing I forgot to add was, is this going to be an expensive proposition? Because I mean, the last thing I want to do is dream up a change for the sake of change that's going to cost us $20,000. What's involved in reprogramming these things if council sees fit to endorse this?
Through you, Deputy Mayor to Mayor Gordon. It would really just fall under our electrical contractor, some time to reprogram them. So we're probably talking somewhere in the value of $2,000, $2,500 maximum. It would be less than a half a day likely for them to come in and make these program changes.
Councillor Major.
The only thing that concerns me is electric vehicles. Because it's getting to the point now where you come up to intersections or whatever, you're turning left or right. No one even knows the electric vehicle's there. So I don't know if there's some way. So if you have a sight impairment and you're going, you think you can cross, and there's a soundless electric vehicle, that's my only concern on that.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Major. Well, I think what Mayor Gordon is suggesting is that we still keep the audible functionality through a press and hold. So all of the pedestrian push buttons have what's called a locator tone. So if you're next to them and the button hasn't been pressed, you'll hear a tick, tick, tick. That's to allow somebody who has sight impairments to locate where the button is. And then then you would push and hold it for 3 seconds, and then you'll feel a slight vibration feedback in the button to let you know that it's been pushed and held. And then when the next cycle would go, you would get the audible call still. So if there was anybody that had sight impairments that they needed to do, they would be encouraged to use the audible system. That the functionality would still remain there, it just wouldn't be automatic.
Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. I totally support this. Being the rep of the BIA, it's come up a number of times, and I'm glad. Hopefully this goes through. I am downtown constantly, and if I were to wait for every green light, I'd be down there even longer. So I look left and right, and I cross, whether it's red, doesn't really matter, and a lot of people do. So I'm guilty of that, but the lights are frustrating. So I'm totally on board with this this change, and if it's for not $2,500, it's seems reasonable to me. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I also support this notice of motion and been guilty of the lights green. I don't have the hands up. I'm going. It would be nice to have them consistent with the rest of the lights in town that aren't on King Street. And I don't know whether this is a good opportunity, but I'm going to mention it. One thing that I can't comprehend why we have that huge sign that says pedestrians yield to traffic. That'll come up another time, but it doesn't make sense to me. But we'll just deal with one thing at a time. Thank you. Oh, you got to have something to look forward to.
Seeing no further hands up. Oh, I apologize. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Frost. It's 9:30, so it's time to sleep. So I'm in support of this because, like Councillor Meredith, I do play Frogger with my life when I go downtown. Red, green, yellow. You go when you can. So this will be a good thing that it'll be automatic. Thank you.
Follow up, Councillor Meredith.
Yeah, just one last question, just for on the finance end of it. Is there a maintenance fund or you know, a side maintenance for the downtown streetlights that we have that we pull this 2,500 from, that's been already budgeted for, or is this an added request? Just wondering.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, Councilor Emeritus. Yeah, we have operating budgets for electrical maintenance. Don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would wager a guess that we'd be able to fall within our budget for this. So it wouldn't be an additional 2,500 to the existing budget.
Council, you've heard the motion. All in favor? Unanimous, that's carried. Back to Mayor Gordon.
Thank you very much. I've got a next motion here from which notice was given, moved by Councillor Major. I need a seconder to get on the floor. Councillor Patel. The council directs staff to consider a four-way stop at the intersection of Midland Avenue and Elizabeth Street in order to stop traffic completely, and that a staff report be presented to council at a future meeting to determine feasibility and costs for a four-way stop at this location. Councillor Major.
Well, because I drive around town more than most of the citizens of town of Midland. One thing it'll do is if you're going north of Midland Avenue from Young Street, it'll be a bit of a traffic calming situation. I know active transportation members would really like that. And just the amount of traffic on Midland Avenue and Elizabeth, just a safety concern for people on foot that they can go across east-west or west-east. And that's why I brought it to the floor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for bringing this motion, Councillor Major. I know that corner very well. I worked well over a decade, and I can't tell you how many accidents I've seen and people trying to cross with their children. It's really a busy area and a direct route to downtown for shopping, and people have a very hard time walking across. Even that little bit of a hill coming down, if you're going toward the water, it's hard to see. If cars can actually stop, they can see what's happening and people can cross much more safely. And the speed on that street, cars and trucks, all hours of the day and night, it just might help with that as well, knowing there's a stop sign, because they go right from Hugel to Young at record speeds. And it is a very dangerous intersection. I can't tell you the accidents I've seen and people being hit by cars there. I support this motion 100%.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you. I agree. I support this. I honestly don't know why this isn't already in place. It is such an unsafe intersection and the visibility is very poor there for pedestrians and even just trying to drive your car across Midland Avenue on Elizabeth. It's a terrible intersection. So I'm 100% in support of this as well.
Deputy Mayor.
I just want a quick follow-up. It says here that it'll be going for a staff report, and I respect that, and it is what it is. But winter's coming, and the sooner the better. If we can, if there's a possibility to speed it up, because that just makes it so much worse. I just wanted to throw that in there. Thank you.
Mr. Sobel, how realistic would it be to, I mean, because it's going to depend on the book and the warrants, which we have the ability to supersede, right? Just because the warrants don't call for a four-way stop, we can supersede that. We've done that. How do you think it would be reasonable that you could have some kind of basic feasibility report back to our next council meeting? It still takes time to go and pound in the signs, and we have to activate it with the province because, you know, you can't just stick a sign in and start enforcing it the next day. But what's the timeline look like if we wanted to expedite this, knowing your busy workload?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gordon. I think the challenge with a turnaround to the next meeting is really data collection with vehicles. You know, we want to make sound decisions, sound judgment based on actual facts. So we'd have to look at what we have already for that area with our data collection stuff. Do we have enough information that we can make a sound recommendation for the next meeting? It's a little bit aggressive. We can shoot for it. We could definitely, you know, something in the December meeting is more plausible in my opinion. yes, winter's coming, so we got to look at, what installation timelines, and then there'll be a budget impact to it, right? So do we want to budget approval on the spot, part of the 25 budget? We have those kind of options as well. So, I think the way the motion is written, it is important to go back and do a report on it and do a fulsome review. We want to make sure that we're making sound recommendations based on actual issues and whatnot. Four-way stops from a traffic calming perspective isn't always a great solution. So we want to look at the safety concerns, the sight lines, things like that, and make a recommendation off of that. So we'll definitely do our best to turn it around as quickly as possible, recognizing that I am a little shorthanded at the moment. So we'll do our best to get as quickly as possible. Installation for this winter, that's the challenging part. So
Yeah, fair enough. I really just want to manage expectations because, I think we have to get the sucker machine in to dig the hole and there's a bunch of stuff. And then we have to wait for the province to get the notification so it becomes enforceable. Might I suggest, because it is such a high visibility location and such a wide road, maybe when you're looking at this, just to try and help our residents out, we consider the costs of adding, the solar powered blinking red light above it for a while, just because it's going to be such a new change there that I don't know if just the sign saying new stop sign would be enough, assuming we approve it. If we could factor in the blinking red lights for the north-south stops that are being contemplated.
Definitely, we can look into those options in our report. As you mentioned, we will have the regulatory signage that we will have to put out there for the new signs ahead. I hesitate with the flashing red lights, to reserve those for areas where some visibilities and stuff isn't great, but we'll look at it in detail. We don't want it to turn into, a slippery slope that we have to put flashing lights on every stop sign in town type of thing, because then they don't mean anything, right? So, but we'll look at those. There's other ideas that start churning already that we can start to think about. They might cost a little more money, but they might end up with a better intersection, but we'll include all of that in our report.
All right, so sorry, just one while we're on this. When I was at the, I don't know what show it was, maybe it was AMO, or it might have been the Good Roads. There was a company that had these sleeves that fit over those channel pole things that you put the stop signs on that were hyper reflective. And you could see them from every angle, not just the one you're, typically approaching it from. And it was cheap. It was like a PVC slide over pole that had lots of reflective tape on it. I don't know if you'd seen those before, but they assured me they were like under $100. And I don't know that we use those anywhere in our municipality, but it struck me as a neat way to try and really bring attention to a stop sign beyond the obvious octagon.
Yeah, I've not seen those personally, provided they meet regulatory signage requirements. I don't have any issues with looking into them and trying a couple out.
Councilor Meredith.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gordon. I appreciate Mr. Sobel's, needing time, and I would and not to rush things to make this report, to get all the data for us to make a sound decision, and certainly coming into budget and knowing where we're at and the costs of this and the impact on the budget would be helpful to make a decision as well. Not that I'm putting cost over safety, but as Mitch said, sometimes a four-way stop is not the answer. But I would just just say, if it takes however long it takes you for this report to get us the data to make the right decision, then I support that. But I definitely wouldn't want you to rush it. So thank you.
Councilor Patel.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. So I haven't worked that corner for 15 years, but I know I avoided that corner for 15 years because to turn left out of that corner or go through straight on Elizabeth, I have avoided because of concern for accident. So talking about a common traffic, I think we could better spread traffic if there was a stop sign, because I think more people would use that road, feeling safer to use it when driving their vehicle. So thank you.
All right, well, it sounds like we're 100% further towards the process than we were before this motion. So we'll let the wheels turn and the report will come back to us, assuming we pass this in a minute. Any more conversation before I call the question? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Lovely. All right, moving on to section 23, have a slew of bylaws here. Three of them moved by Councillor Major, seconded by Councillor East. That the following bylaws, bylaw 2024-53, authorize the town to assume Riverwalk Place. Yay for Riverwalk Place, people. Bylaw 2024-54, authorize the signing of the municipal funding agreement for the transfer of funds under the Canadian Community Building Fund, effective April 1st, 2024. So that's retrospective. And bylaw 2024-55, repeal bylaw 2017-17, being a bylaw to establish Human Resources Standing Committee, and repeal bylaw 2016-82, being a bylaw to establish Standing Committee. And that was discussed at the last meeting. This is just coming ahead now as bylaw. Any questions about these three bylaws? Alrighty, all those in favor? Any opposed? And it's carried. Next, moved by Deputy Mayor Prost, seconded by Councillor Meredith, that bylaw 2024-56 being a bylaw to adopt the proceedings of the regular council meeting with closed session held October 16, 2024, be passed and enacted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And last but not least, moved by Councillor Bald, seconded by Councillor Patel, this regular meeting of council with closed session adjourn at 9:29 p.m. All those in favor? And it's carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.